Welcome into Hoopsville, everybody. Coming to you live from the Hoopsville studios. As we always do, welcome in on another afternoon edition of the show. If you got questions for us, you can always tweet us at D3Hoopsville and hashtag Hoopsville. You can always email us, hoopsville at D3sports.com. You can join us on Facebook, facebook.com/Hoopsville, where I believe we're simulcasting the show today. And it still didn't go smoothly. We just happened to pull it out just at the end. We're also live streaming on YouTube, youtube.com/Hoopsville. That's how you can get a hold of us. And I got something in my contact again. I'm telling you, it's a blast to have that. So we're rolling along here, and we welcome you in. I'm your host, Dave McHugh, coming to you from the National Association of Basketball Coaches studio, the NABC studios, also with friends and help from the WBCA. Also want to thank our friends at Blue Frame Technology for their assistance on this show as well. They help stream this show, simulcast this show, host our hotline, etc. We absolutely appreciate their support to no end. And if you ever are interested in finding a new streaming partner, or you want to use their Blue Frame technology, their production truck technology for streaming, especially small college sports, please make sure to give them a call and make sure you tell them you heard about it on Hoopsville or I sent your way, whichever works for you. That would be pretty cool. We'd love to hear about it. So there you go. Lots to talk about this weekend. Let me first and foremost get to that the marathon is coming up on Thursday. The only thing I haven't figured out is the start time, and I say that a little bit tongue-in-cheek. I should know the start time by now. We're aiming for maybe a 12 to 1 o'clock start. We have got a number of guests lined up. We're literally going to slot them into place tomorrow and finalize all that. And then as a result of that, we will determine our exact on time. But I'm aiming for a 1 o'clock time. I will say, for the most part, that's usually like our only midday show outside of some stuff at the end of the regular season. And it is what it is. Now that we've done a number of midday shows, and as much as I had thought about doing midday shows in the future, I'm not a fan of the midday show. Way too much work to get done in the morning. Now, we would have to change our workflow, of course, and maybe do some things differently. And that could make a difference. But right now, I'm not a huge fan. Wouldn't mind going back to the evening shows like we've done, getting my son back on board, getting us into a better workflow. But Thursday, we will be on the air midday into the evening. So I envision getting on between 12 and 1, going on until 8 or 9. We've got a lot of great guests lined up. We're going to have kind of a free-for-all at the end. And we'll see where it takes us. It's a little bit more laid back and relaxed type of show than we've done in the past. A lot of people have talked about it as a fundraising effort. That's certainly where it started for us. We're not focused on that, but if you want to help donate to the cause, we'll certainly let you know how you can do that. What was the other note? And then a reminder, next Monday, February 7th, we will be on the air again at 1 p.m. Eastern, like we are today. Next Thursday, so in 10 days, some odd time, we're still working on that. That's going to be a pre-taped show. It's not going to be able to be aired live, and I don't feel comfortable skipping a day. So we're going to try and put that together on Tuesday and Wednesday to be released on Thursday because I need to travel for work. And then we should be back to normal on February 14th at 7 p.m. Eastern time, but stranger things have happened. So there you go. Kind of my spiel, as it were. Might have to change our microphone too. I'm a little frustrated, but we'll cross that bridge some other time. Again, if you have questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville, hashtag Hoopsville, email us, hoopsville at D3sports.com, join us on Facebook, facebook.com/Hoopsville, D3sports. Email us, YouTube, at D3Hoopsville, hashtag Hoopsville. Lots of things to do. New top 25s will come out later today. I'm going to be fascinated to see what happens because it was a bonkers weekend in men's basketball. I got the women in front of me. Let me get back to that. Or not just the weekend, but the week in general. Randolph-Macon is about the only team in the top 5 who went unscathed for the most part. They played 3 games and beat Bridgewater, Hampton-Sydney by 20, and WNL by 5. Though that WNL game, they're up by 15. Looked like they were going to walk away with it early in the second half, and WNL came back on them. Illinois Wesleyan had a rough week. They went 1-2. They beat Carthage at the start of the week. You might remember we talked to their head coach right after. Was it that? No, it was a week before after the Elmhurst game. I apologize. The weeks are running together on me. But they beat Carthage earlier in the week. Then they lost to Elmhurst on Wednesday. We talked about that on Thursday's show, 74-66. then went out and lost to Concordia Chicago in non-conference play, 81-75 in overtime. Big block at the end of regulation led to that overtime game by Concordia Chicago. Hats off to them. But Illinois Wesleyan now 15-4. They're not the only ones that had a rough week. Wash U lost 2. They lost to Carnegie Mellon 71-68 on Friday and then lost to Case Western Reserve 75-70 on Sunday. I'm wondering if Nolan's injured. I'll admit I've not been on the boards to see what other people are saying, though there's no comments in the UAA board about it that I saw. I could have missed it. But I am curious if WashU's not at 100%. Oshkosh, the number 4 team in the country, lost to Eau Claire 74-72. Eau Claire not ranked. And then you get to number 5, Platteville, and they beat La Crosse, number 10 team. We talked about that on Wednesday. They didn't play this weekend, 76-72. Marietta won. Yeshiva got back in action and won 2 games. Christopher Newport won a game. St. Joseph's, Connecticut won 2 games. Actually, they won 3 because they beat Regis. It's just not updated here on my sheet here. Johnson and Wales, Elms, and Regis. La Crosse, who lost to Platteville on Wednesday, got back and got a big win over Bethel, 95-60. So that's your top 10. Johns Hopkins, who beat Gettysburg and were taking on a 2 straight loss Swarthmore team, lost to Swarthmore by 10, just to make my head very confused in the Centennial Conference. I'll finally get my eyes in person on Johns Hopkins Wednesday. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to see Swarthmore where I normally get to see them. I'm going to have to make another effort to go and see them somewhere. But the Centennial Conference top 2, Hopkins and Swarthmore, very confusing. Now, Swarthmore was not playing with D'Angelo those previous 2 games. I think he was back for the Hopkins game. That certainly makes a difference. Maryville got 2 big wins, including over Piedmont. Williams had its week basically called off. Had a game against SUNY New Paltz, didn't play. Had a game against Connecticut College, didn't play. Had a game against Trinity, Connecticut, didn't play. So Williams going through another rough stretch here. They're going to have a ton of games at the end, or they're not going to have a lot of games to compare against. WPI at least got back on the winning ways, spanked Springfield 83-48. Elmers, who lost to North Central and beat Illinois Wesleyan, they also beat North Park. Wesleyan had a weird week. They beat Tufts by 1, lost to Amherst by 2, and then beat Hamilton by 19. So the NESCAC's even more confusing. Mary Hardin Baylor had a good week. Oswego had a good week. Spanked up 3 SUNYAC teams. Beat Geneseo by 10. Oneonta by 18. And New Paltz by, 19? Or no, 29. Augsburg had its 2 games called off against Bethel and Carrollton. Emory had a good week. And then you get in the receiving votes category. We talked about DeSales losing to Wilkes, but they came back and barely got past Misericordia, 84-82. Laterno lost to Bellhaven this week after beating ETBU. Claremont Mudd Scribs lost to Occidental. Keene State lost to Plymouth State. Guilford lost to Hampden-Sydney. Tufts lost to Wesleyan. Brandeis lost to Emory. These are just teams receiving votes. And then on the women's side, we talked about the Hope loss. NYU took its first loss of the season, losing to Rochester on Friday, but then got back on the winning ways, defeating Emory 77-44. Both those games were on the road. So Transylvania, Christopher Newport, and Webster, along with Wisconsin Lutheran, your only top undefeated teams left in the country, and Webster the only one not receiving votes, or at least ahead of this podcast. We'll see how that develops with the latest top 25 poll. As of late last night, women top 25 voters are split up on who's going to be number 1. We'll see who ends up staying number 1. Other notes, Wartburg lost both their games this week to Dubuque and to Simpson. Both games lost in overtime. Lost by 6 to Dubuque in overtime on Wednesday. Lost by 5 to Simpson in overtime on Saturday. Springfield lost 2 after going undefeated on the season up until this week. They lost to MIT and Babson by 4 and 5 respectively. Eau Claire took its 5th loss of the season to Oshkosh. Marietta took another loss. Baldwin-Wallace seems to have Marietta's number. Of the 3 losses Marietta has this season, I think 2 of them come to Baldwin-Wallace. And it hasn't been close. 74-48 Baldwin-Wallace in that one. Bowdoin lost to Tufts. Hardin Simmons lost to Mary Hardin Baylor, then beat Concordia, Texas. And then St. John Fisher lost to Ithaca. We mentioned that earlier, previous show. Then they beat Keuka and Nazareth. In the receiving votes category, Dallas, Texas lost to ETBU. Roger Williams lost to Smith. Albion lost to Hope. That ended up not being, it's exactly what we expected. We expected Hope to just kind of roll Albion kind of pissed off. Mary Washington lost 2 games to Stevenson and to Christopher Newport. Probably lose all their voters at this point. Carroll lost 2 of its 3 games. It lost both of them to Augustana and beat Wheaton in between. The Augustana game was nearly identical. They lost 58-67 earlier in the week. They lost 56-67 on the weekend. Augsburg lost to Carrollton. Puget Sound lost to George Fox. So those are your receiving votes category. Let's talk guests on the show today. Rhodes women's basketball coach Rodney Rogan will join us on the show. The Lynx are 15-2 overall, 7-0 in the SAA. Then we'll switch gears, talk men's basketball with Hanover men's basketball coach John Miller. His Panthers are 15-2 as well. They're 11-1 in the HCAC. We'll talk about them. We'll then talk men's basketball top 25 with Mike Rainiak and Ryan Scott. We'll get those two back together and reunited today. Talk to them about the upcoming top 25. Then we'll talk more men's basketball with Lehman men's basketball coach Steven Shulman. The Lightning are 13-2 overall, 7-1 in CUNYAC play. And then we head to the second most eastern campus in Division III. Maine Maritime women's basketball coach Craig Dagan will join us, talking about Mariners' 16-2 mark, 10-0 in NAC play. So if you didn't catch the subtle hint, every single team we have on the show has 2 losses. We are 1 month away, exactly today, a month away from talking about who's in and who's out of the NCAA tournament. We'll have the brackets at about this point. We air this live. One of the brackets would be in the middle being released or just had been finished released, and the next one coming up in about an hour and a half's time, or an hour. And then later that evening, we'll do our breakdown show. So in a month's time, we have 1 month left. We still have regional rankings that we have not seen. We still have conference games that have not been played against opponents. We still have conference tournaments ahead of us. There's a lot to play in that 1 month, but it's just a month. Regional rankings will come out on Tuesday the 9th. Now, I'm told both men and women will come out on that day, that they moved them up to Tuesday the 8th. I apologize, Tuesday the 8th. There is the handbook for women that finally showed up. I think it's out, and I'll double check that during the show. But the handbook says the women are coming out to the 9th. I was under the impression both were coming out the 8th. We will double check with that. We can confirm both chairs will be on our show Thursday in a joint group. So that'll be fun to talk to Megan Wilson of Luther and Michael Schauer of Wheaton. And we'll get an answer from them about all that stuff as well. So that's all ahead. In the next month ahead, we got a lot to cover, and it really ramps up starting today, to say the least. So there you go. Kind of went through our spiel. Hope it makes sense to you. Hope you're enjoying some good basketball. Like I said, bonkers week for men's basketball. Voter-wise, I feel for everybody. I got my top 25 around here somewhere. I put it down. I moved it over to the table. I'm going to have to go grab it here in a minute. I need to finalize it. To be honest with you, I'm debating over a couple of teams and a couple of places. Oh, it's underneath my audio board. I apologize. So I've got my top 25 kind of done, but it doesn't have. I don't like the bottom. Let's call it 10. And so I'm gonna go through that before submitting here in a bit. I made some movement everywhere. The only team I didn't move was my number 1 team. Everybody else moved, and not necessarily. It's one of the tougher ballots this week, for sure. All right, quick note before we go, because I don't want to forget at the end of the show. I want to thank St. John Fisher women's basketball. Sent us a hat. That is a darn cool hat. And we'll hang it up in the studio. Maybe we'll wear it about town. We'll see. But nice hat. Also sent a jersey in. So we got a bunch of jerseys we now have to hang. And I just got an email before we hit the air from the group we use. I'm trying to get that on camera. There we go. I'm not holding it very well. Group we use to hang our jerseys, the company we use. I just got an email from them. We reached out to see if they were interested in joining the show. So we got a bunch to hang. Hopefully we can get some hung up by, especially on that blank wall by the marathon. Nice note from St. John Fisher women's basketball coach Melissa there. Really appreciate it. Very kind note. I should point out, we mentioned Transylvania sent us their jerseys. They sent us a nice note as well. If you want to send us a jersey, please feel free. We've had a few coaches reach out, haven't gotten from them, but we know they're on their way or going to be on their way. You just reach out to me. Either email me, hoopsville@d3sports.com, or if you know my personal email address, send it to that. Send it a message to Twitter, through direct message. We've gotten, that's worked for some people as well. And we'll give you the information on how to send them to us. And with that, we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll talk women's basketball with Rhodes women's basketball coach Rodney Rogan. He joins us to talk about his Lynx squad and the SAA race. You listen to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the NABC studios. More after this.
Why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics, and in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's more opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III.
I did receive academic scholarships. Just being involved on campus, being a leader, all those things combined kind of get me recognized. It's a great experience for me.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
Football has taught me a lot throughout my life. It's definitely had a huge imprint on who I am as a person. Competing at a Division III level created that opportunity for me to go to college. Not only was I the first one in my family to graduate college, but I was really the first one to even go. Being the first one, I'm breaking that cycle, and now that I've graduated, I'm not sure what's the next step, but I know I have a lot of doors open. And a lot of those are open because I played football and ran track here at Otterbein.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying the show. If you got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville at d3sports.com. That's always an easy way to get a hold of us. You can also join us on Facebook, facebook.com, where we're simulcasting the show. We're also simulcasting on YouTube, youtube.com/D3Hoopsville. Or no, /Hoopsville. If you commented on the show so far on Facebook, we haven't seen it yet, though we're checking it out. But feel free to do so. Yeah, again, lots of options. If you want to interact with us, you certainly can, or have a question for our guests. Let's turn our attention down to the South region. As we do on this show, we focus on the even-numbered regions with Region 1, 2 combined. So 1, 2, 4, 6, and 8, which kind of works out to being the old Northeast, Atlantic, South, and Central regions, which we always did on Sundays, now Mondays. So we'll start down in the South, and we start with women's basketball. And there's a team that's probably not getting enough attention, maybe, or we don't truly understand them. The Rhodes Women's basketball team, if you haven't looked, is 15-2 overall. They're 7-0 in SAA play as they make the turn, as it were, to take a golf term. And it's kind of curious just how good are the Lynx. So joining us on the Blue Frame Technology Hoopsville hotline, it's their head coach. It is Rodney Rogan. Coach, first and foremost, thanks for the time. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. First, can I get this out of the way? The fact you're Rodney Rogan and you're coaching at Rhodes just seems so perfect.
Yeah, it worked out. It worked out pretty good. And then one other thing, I drive a Nissan Rogue, and it's red, so it's a lot.
Well, we've got it all encompassed here. It's Rodney Rogan coaching Rhodes, driving his Rogue.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we can do something with that. We need to work on that.
Yeah, I need to get in touch with Nissan and maybe a little sponsorship.
I was going to say, there's a sponsorship, there's a PR here. There's a shtick we could pull off using all those R's. The only problem is the links. It doesn't really work. We'll figure it out. First and foremost, you haven't, if memory serves, and forgive me, you haven't been at Rhodes all that long, right?
Correct. This is my 3rd season here at Rhodes.
What's it been like to take on a program that kind of sits, and I don't want to say an island because we use that with the SCIAC, we use that with the Northwest, we use that with Texas, but you are kind of in a funky area of D3 where you're kind of in between everything.
Yep.
Challenging, right?
It is, with our conference is a little spread out too. But just trying to get to those places, you go and play in Texas, and that's still, a long trip to get there. And then if you want to go, up north, it's far as well. So we are in an interesting area. It does allow us to kind of get to those places. Just makes for, a few long trips though.
Yeah, I mean, the disadvantage is you can get to some places, or the advantage is you can get to some places. The disadvantage is you're on a bus for a while.
Yes.
Or a plane, which isn't cheap. But it is Memphis, Tennessee. They ain't, from what I've been told, there ain't a lot wrong with Memphis, Tennessee. Good food, good entertainment.
Yes, I have no complaints about living here in Memphis. That's for sure.
Again, 15-2 overall. You played, speaking of Texas, you went down to Texas to start the season. And I mean, right at the start of the season, you took advantage of the rules. Played on the 6th and 7th. Don't get me started about that. You lost to Mary Hardin Baylor by 1 on the opening game, and then beat ETBU by 6 the second game. Certainly drew some attention. Just tell me about that start, because not only was it the fact it's early, meaning you didn't have a ton of time to get ready for it like normal teams would, but second, you also had a big road trip right out the gate.
Yeah, a big road trip, a long trip from Memphis to Belton, Texas. But we were able to, spread it out and practice on the way down there and get there. But, you open up the season early against a really, really good team at their place. And with not as much practice time as you feel like you probably need, we certainly have a veteran team. So I knew that they would be ready. But I certainly would have liked a few more days. But it was a tough environment, tough road game to go down there, and you lose by 1 point. And you have a shot at the end to get you that game, and then to come back less than 24 hours later to play ETBU and to gut out a victory against obviously a team that's really good and continue to play well this year. I think it was an opportunity for us to show that we are a really good team.
It certainly showed that right out of the gate. After that, you went on a 6-game winning streak against Mississippi University of Women, Austin, Ozarks, Wash U, 83-80. You love those Texas schools. Took on University of Dallas in Jackson, Mississippi on the 27th around Thanksgiving. Got a big win against them. Agnes Scott, you got to win. And then you took on Emory at their place. Unfortunately, that's your second loss, but again, a close one against a really good Emory squad. Your 2 losses have been notable in a good way.
Yeah. We knew that, you try to make your schedule, and obviously we knew that we needed to have some tests, and going down to Texas and playing 2 schools in the UAA, you're at Emory, and that game we really also had a great chance to win. We were up in the 4th quarter, and we just couldn't maintain that momentum. We kind of lost some of our principles, and we got called for more fouls than we usually like to play our style. And then we had some people go out. And so Emory's, they play fast, they push at you in tempo. And I think they're doing well this year as well. So it's like, you lose by 4 points on the road to a quality team. You hate it, because I feel like we had a lot of momentum going into that game, but at least you push yourself against a team like Emory.
And then again, winning streak since then. You've beaten 8 straight. Mainly in conference. You played Mississippi Women a second time, and then beat Hendricks and Berry and Oglethorpe, Swanee center, Swanee again, center again, as you did the turnaround there in conference play, and a game against Birmingham Southern that hasn't been played yet. Overall, how's the season gone then? As we've just kind of walked our way through it, is it going better than expected? Or were you expecting to be better?
I think it's going about where we expected up until the Emory game. Once we played Emory, we've had to deal with some injuries to some talented players on our team, and so the surprise has been, I think, kind of how resilient they've been playing with kind of limited numbers in a different lineup. You have 2 starters that are out right now. One being an All-American and Kira Downey, an All-South region player. And so we've had to kind of reshape our team, but our sophomores, our juniors, and our seniors have really stepped it up. So 15-2 is a good number and a great position to be where we are in our conference. So you want those games back, because the possibility of being somewhere different with the Mary Hardin Baylor game and the Emory game. You're so close, But it's great to be here with a resilient bunch who's so experienced and getting better every day.
What surprises me, and I don't vote on the women's side unless needed. What surprises me is that you guys haven't gotten any votes, I should say, in the D3 Hoops Top 25. And granted, we're talking before the latest one comes out, so that could easily change by the time some people may be hearing this.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm a little surprised because you have a close loss to Emory, you have a close loss to
Mary Hardin-Baylor.
Yeah, thank you, Mary Hardin-Baylor. A win over ETBU, who's obviously ranked, and Mary Hardin-Baylor has been ranked, and Emory certainly is always in the conversation. Granted, the conference isn't maybe explaining a lot of things. Oglethorpe, I think a lot of people expected to maybe be a little bit better this season. But overall, what are we missing, do you think? And I'll take the onus as a we. What are we missing about your squad that says, yeah, we are top 25? Or let me flip it. Do you agree that maybe, even despite that record, maybe you agree with the voters and it's not a top 25 team?
Well, obviously, you tell the players we can't worry about what's going on the outside. We focus on ourselves, but in terms of, if there are polls and recognition to be had, we love to be in the conversation.
Sure.
We did get into the rankings for a hot second. And then after that, that Emory loss on the road, we kind of dropped out and stopped receiving votes just altogether. And granted, we have a few games in there where it doesn't help your strength of schedule. But I think in terms of, going on the road, beating ETBU, a loss to Mary Hardin-Baylor by 1, beating WashU, and playing Emory and all that, in terms of those 4 teams, because Trinity was in that tournament to start the year as well. I'm a little confused as to why we at least are not getting any type of receiving votes, because we not every game is going to be a top 25 matchup just where we're at. And in terms of our conference, Oglethorpe has had some injuries and struggled a little bit this year.
Right.
But I think we played who we needed to play and played them tough. Our 2 losses are by 5 points this year against a team that I think Emory's 5-2 in the UAA.
Yeah.
Mary Hardin-Baylor is ranked now, I believe. So I think we've tested ourselves and we've shown up to be a pretty good team. So I hope we get a little bit more recognition.
Well, I appreciate the candor. And again, I mean, the one problem with women's basketball is there's a ton of great teams.
A lot of great teams. So I get that. And our team has fought, and again, we have people coming back from injury. So I understand, like, looking at the top 25, a lot of good teams around the country. And so I understand it's not easy to vote and place the poll, but I'm proud of certainly what we've done this year.
You look at the standings in the conference, you guys lead the way by half a game on Barry. If we look back, I think you got the tiebreak currently with them as well. You've got a game with them coming up here this weekend. You'll be on the road at Barry and at Oglethorpe. 2 tough teams. Oglethorpe not having the season I think Alex Ritchie was expecting to have, but Barry certainly having a pretty solid season. This weekend's kind of big because if you want to stay ahead there and kind of force everybody to come to Memphis, this is kind of the weekend you need, right?
Yeah, we have our 5 conference games left, and Barry is just so tough defensively, and I think they're growing offensively. Some of their players, the confidence is growing, and so what they've done in the league so far, I mean, they defend, they pressure you, so that's a tough game on a Friday night. And then Oglethorpe, even if they're struggling a little bit, they have talented players, and Alex Ritchie is a great coach down there. So this is the weekend for us to, continue to maybe see if there is a separation, and then hopefully have the conference tournament in Memphis, so we don't have to travel to go anywhere, if we're able to win that, first round game.
Yeah, that'd be huge, obviously, to say the least. It'd be big. As far as the rest of the conference, though, I don't want to overlook the weekend, and I also don't want to overlook the rest of the season either, because after this, you'll have Millsaps, Birmingham, Southern, and Hendricks to finish it off all at home. So obviously you want to take care of home, but is it really this weekend only? I mean, what I'm trying to say? Is it really got to focus on this weekend, or is it, I got to focus on this weekend, but then we still have to deal with this home side?
Well, I mean, for me, and this is not even coach speak, I really just like, all right, this game in front of us. I know what Barry can do. I know what Oglethorpe has and the potential they have to continue to improve. Millsap's defense is always tough. Birmingham Southern plays the kind of the Grinnell system and pushing the pace. And Hendricks always plays hard. So I don't ever rest or assume that, oh, just get this weekend and we're done. Like, I know who we're playing coming up, and I know that we have to prepare, game plan, because nothing is assumed, because those coaches are going to work hard for their team. So it's a great position we're in now, but there's certainly people coming after us, and we know that we have to work hard to stay where we're at.
Looking at your team, you play 11 players. That's it. It seems like a bit of a short bench. You've got 5 seniors. For the most part, you've played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players in every game, and then a 7th in 12 of the 17. I'm used to talking to coaches who play a lot of depth, play a lot of players, have a lot of roster, especially coming out of COVID. You might be one of the first ones I have it on the air this year where it's much shorter. I mean, 6 in the rotation every game, maybe a 7th, and then we can possibly talk about 2 more. And granted, I realize injuries and COVID and all that could have changed a lot of that. You've got 2 who are in your top 5 in scoring that we're not discussing in those numbers. So what's the roster been like this year?
Oh, it's been something that was, steady. To start the year, I'd say we have a lot of depth. There was 9 people who would be in the rotation to play. And then we were able to develop some people and hopefully, bring them on as the year went on or as their career went on. Then you have injuries to 2 starters, and then they're dropping off. So then people who are on the bench are now playing a lot of minutes, and we've been able to see how good they are as players. We have a sophomore who's been our leading scorer in conference, Catherine Altoff. She had 26 points against ETBU, and she's coming off the bench for us, but she's playing big minutes. Anaya Lagarde, who also is a sophomore, has started to play big minutes, whereas at the beginning of the year she wasn't playing that much because she's essentially playing behind All-American in Kira. So the depth is something that we're working on, but you have such good players who can play a lot of minutes that we trust them out on the court. And it's playing basically 7 people is something that we're conditioned to do. I look at some of the times when UConn was obviously at the top, their rotation wasn't deep. We're not UConn, relax, not saying that, but we're able to play our top 7 a lot of extended minutes with making sure we're giving them breaks and everything, and they're staying in shape. I lost you.
It's called the mute button. I hit it and forgot to unhit it. It's a minor detail. This is what happens when you solo the show completely.
Yeah.
I'm going to screw up Allie's last name. McHugh?
Allie McHugh.
Oh, I got it right.
Yeah.
She's your leader, 15 points a game on a squad that technically has 5 double-digit players. Kiara Downey, again, 9 games, 14.5 points. Catherine Althoff, 13.5 points a game. Anaya Lagrade, 11 points a game. And then another one like Kiara, Alexis Mathangani,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had to think it through. Mathangani. Again, 11 points a game. Again, just nine games. So you got an interesting mix there. Tell me a little bit about Allie and that rest of that core, because while you're not deep on the bench and thus not surprised by scoring, you've got a lot of players there who will score, though.
Yes. If you look at kind of our scores, certainly even before injuries, we're averaging about 80 points a game, with ETBU, WashU, Emory, all that kind of stuff against that good competition. Allie McHugh has just been just amazing. I think she has like 11 double-doubles this year in our 17 games. And she's a 4-player, helps us handle the ball, rebounds like crazy, shoots the ball and drives. So, her leadership. Also, Ellen Hagen's our point guard, but we have people who can score, and that's the thing. When I was assistant, Division I, we would play a lot of those South Dakota State schools, and they're I think teams that kind of overachieve for like the low major, all that kind of stuff. And one thing I always value is that if you're on the court, you need to be a threat. You need to find a way kind of to be a threat and be a weapon. And so we don't kind of hold our players back from being aggressive and looking to score. So if someone goes down, someone else is able to step up. So between, Catherine, Allie, Anaya getting in there, we have people who are going to give us double-digit points all the time, even if you lose 2 double-digit scores in Kiara and Alexis. kind of for an extended period of time. So, our depth is not what it was, but the talent and the work ethic is still there. So they just really can put the ball in the basket in multiple ways.
Outscoring your opponents by 16, out shooting your opponents by 10%. You're shooting 43%, opponents 33, shooting 31% from beyond the arc, opponents 26. Out rebounding your opponents by about 9 rebounds again. Math's simple for me. There's a lot that's going right. So again, you mentioned coming from D1 and you're in your third year. You've settled in a little bit. I'm curious, are you still in that hoping to do things that you've learned from D1? Have you augmented to D3? Is it a hybrid? Is it you threw it all out and you've started over?
Well, I was a D3 player myself, so I certainly love kind of the model and what we're able to do, and with the time constraints that the students have, and then obviously academics. So what I've taken is like, hey, we don't want to foul. Like that's one of our biggest things. You can look at kind of the free throws, and if we're playing well, we're not fouling. And then in terms of what I've taken, I do think the ability for the individual to improve at Division III is something that you really have to take advantage of. So our practices are not long. We're certainly within like the time frame, but we do make sure our players, if within their schedule, we ask them to come in and get extra work in, with a coach as our time allows, just so you can develop, because practice is for the team.
Yeah.
But I do know Division I, there's more time obviously for them to get those individual group workouts. But we just make sure if your schedule allows, you have a few minutes, let's go in and get a workout, or they'll come in and get extra work. So that's the one thing I think I've really wanted to take from my time at Division I.
Not that you can't relate to your student athletes, but I am curious, is it relatable having been a player, especially in that region too, and playing similar opponents, granted, men versus women, but similar schools? Can you still relate to the student athlete now, or are there aspects of their lives / demands, whatever, that are just completely different than when you were a student athlete?
Well, first of all, they're much smarter than I was.
Yeah, I can relate.
So can't relate to the ones working to go to med school. But what I think I do relate to is for me, as a player, we had a really successful senior season when I was at Millsaps. And one thing that always kind of stopped me was like the confidence, the mental aspect of playing. And now with mental health, I think even becoming something that's talked about more, I understand how important it is to be confident. And so for me as a coach, my philosophy is like, hey, I want you to come here to practice, to the games. This can't be an added stressor for you. So I understand that like they need consistency from me. They need an environment where they can really flourish. And that's something that I try to put as much focus on as anything. Like, hey, tell me what's going on. What are you thinking? Let's see if we can work through it together, where basketball can be a place where you grow your confidence, grow your leadership. And I think we've done a good job with that, because the players will tell me what's going on if they're struggling. But they also want to still make sure they're competing out there for themselves and their teammates. So as long as we have that open dialogue and we can focus on the player experience, I think that's helped us through all these injuries and COVID. Even last year winning the conference championship with only 7 days of practice before we started. I think that environment that we've tried to have on our staff has helped us, kind of fight through adversity these last 2 years.
Well, Coach, I appreciate the time. Great insight on your squad. And again, I'm telling you, there's a marketing plan and advertising plan somewhere about the Rodney Rogan's Rhodes Women's team driving in a Rogue.
Yeah.
We got to figure it out. I'm telling you, it's out there. Super Bowl commercial, even if we can pull it off in time. I don't know if we got $1 million for 10 seconds, but maybe we can try.
You can crowdsource.
Good crowdsource. Good idea. Yeah, we'll see if we can crowdsource. And while we're at it, we'll solve the D3 budget too. Hey, appreciate the time. We always give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuned in?
I just appreciate you having me on. I think our team is really, really special, and they deserve to be recognized for all the work that they've done, especially these last 2 years with all this COVID mess going on. So I love what you guys do for D3 Hoops. It really shines a light on deserved student athletes. So I appreciate that. And thanks for having me on.
Oh, thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it and humoring us. Take care of yourself. Good luck the rest of the season. We'll look forward to catching up with you down the road.
All right. Thanks.
Absolutely. Rodney Rogan joining us from Rhodes. Again, they're 15-2 overall, 7-0 in conference play on the road at Berry and Oglethorpe this weekend. When we come back, we go north, head over to Hanover, talk HCAC men's basketball in Region 8. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the NABC studios. More after this.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
In any way that we can.
To get a friend home safe.
To never blame the victim.
It's on us.
To stand up.
To make our community safe for all. It's on us.
It's on us to look out for each other at parties.
It's on us.
To be more than just a bystander.
To step up and say something.
It's on us, all of us.
To stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
Football has taught me a lot throughout my life. It's definitely had a huge imprint on who I am as a person. Competing at a Division III level created that opportunity for me to go to college. Not only was I the first one in my family to graduate college, but I was really the first one to even go. Being the first one, I'm breaking that cycle, and now that I've graduated, I'm not sure what's the next step, but I know I have a lot of doors open. And a lot of those are open because I played football and ran track here at Otterbein.
There are over 480,000 college athletes. Only 2% will go pro. That means over 470,000 will not get a shoe contract. No autographs. No private jets. No fan clubs. No Hall of Fame inductions. Instead, they will walk away with something much more valuable.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Coming to you on this Monday afternoon, once again. A reminder, Thursday shows the marathon. I don't know why we keep doing this to ourselves, but the marathon is Thursday. We're a month out from the end of the regular season. We always do the marathon right about that time. So here we go. We got the marathon. And there's no Super Bowl to worry about this week, so, tune into us. We'll hit the air about 1 o'clock Eastern time and go for about 8 or 9 hours. Then next Monday we'll be live again, midday, 1 o'clock show. And then the 10th of February will be pre-taped. And then hopefully on Valentine's Day, our love to Division III will be back to our normally scheduled time. But stick with us on Twitter at D3Hoopsville and hashtag Hoopsville to find out what our schedule is, or Facebook.com/Hoopsville. Instagram as well at D3Hoopsville and hashtag Hoopsville, though we do it mainly to promote and receive promotion, but not really interact. You can always email us, hoopsville at D3Sports.com. Switching gears, talking men's basketball. Got a text from a coach in this conference going, hey, I'm glad to see some of the Central teams losing because I want to see our top dog in the conference get a little bit higher in regional rankings when they come out. Well, that's one way of looking at it. It just makes the region a little bit more complicated, but that's one way to look at it. The HCAC was in the Central region, then got put in the Great Lakes, and when things got reshuffled to Region 8, they got put back to where they probably should have been in the first place, arguably. But the men's basketball team at Hanover could be in those regional rankings when we see them in a couple of weeks' time because they're having a tremendous season. 15-2 overall, 11-1 in HCAC play. And to say the least, running the HCAC at this point in time because they got something like a 3-game lead in the conference. So join us on the Blue Frame Technology Hoopsville Hotline. It's the head coach of the aforementioned Panthers. It is John Miller. And Coach, first and foremost, thanks for joining me. Good to see you.
Dave, it's real good to see you. It's been a little while. Yes. Obviously, these last almost 2 years have been a little bit different, but it's great to see you, and I appreciate the opportunity to be on with you.
Well, thanks for coming on. By the way, I'll always remember our trip back from Vegas together. I think the only team I've ever traveled back on a plane with.
Yeah, I apologize. You had to experience the Hanover Panthers that way, but a great trip. And I saw you guys were back at it this year. That was great to see. I know, I know Coach Lane and the Trancy guys were out there with you.
They were.
I'd love to
so
get
now
us
the
back
next
out there.
logical step is to have you out again. And then once you're set, I will reset my plans to make sure I'm flying through Indy on the way home.
the next time we go, I will send our travel itinerary to you first thing.
I'll even try and get on the way, maybe on the way out. That'd be even better.
Absolutely.
You get to see me stressed on the way out, and while you get to see me relaxed on the way back. Hey,
that's right.
Again, great season, 15-2. You're 11-1 in conference play. Maybe to some degree, I'm surprised you're not getting votes in the top 25. And listen, I'm guilty of that. I've not put in my final top 25. You guys aren't currently on it, but there's 2 spots available, and you're one of a bunch that I'm considering. What is it about your season that's going so well, and what, as a voter, am I maybe missing?
Oh, I don't know if I'm smart enough to figure out what all goes into all the things that the voters can, consider. And you guys see multiple teams. My focus is on our team. I think the way our season is played out, and we've kind of always, I think, tried to be this way as a program. You just really try to stay focused on, the most urgent things in front of you. We have really on paper a pretty young team. So coming into the year, there's certain things that I think are the same as you go about preparing your team every year. But certainly when you think you're going to have a young team, you are, thinking about kind of the steps you need to take to, bring some guys along. And so I think that, our team's just kind of went to work from the get-go, just kind of plugging away. And this may sound a little silly, but it's kind of like, we've woken up and here we are, and our record is what it is. And right, that's great. And, not necessarily super aware of the path that we've taken to get there. It's just been kind of trying to be about getting better each week. And these last few weeks, I feel like we've moved ourselves forward and been playing some pretty good basketball.
It's interesting. One of the teams we've been talking a lot about in the top 25 is Wabash. You guys beat them start of the season. And since then, again, only 2 losses. I think maybe you're a victim of good teams that aren't having great seasons. Wittenberg would be an example of that. You beat them, but Wittenberg isn't exact. I mean, they're 8-9. We're not used to a 500 Wittenberg squad.
Sure.
And you've got some others in there who are probably experiencing the same thing, and especially in conference, you don't seem to have the same group that's up at the top giving you a hard time. You've separated yourself, so you almost seem like you had some bad timing.
Well, yeah, and for us, certainly don't take this the wrong way. I think the top 25 rankings in what you guys do for Division III basketball is absolutely awesome. And I know our players and our fans, they are going to be, I don't know if they'd be upset. I'm sure, hey, right, somebody's always upset, right, with a poll. I think from our coach's standpoint, our player standpoint, we don't pay a whole lot of attention to it. And I don't mean that to diminish the importance and the neatness of what D3 Hoops provides for basketball. You're right. We did have a great win at Wabash. That game was on the road up there. Obviously it was early, but it's a non-conference game, so you got to play them when you can play them, right? Witt was picked to win the North Coast. We got pushed back a year. We couldn't play last year. It was the second year of a 2-year deal last year, and so it got moved to this year. Coach Croce does a great job at Wittenberg, and as you know, that's traditionally one of the best programs in the country, right? And then within our league, I'm sure every league is like this a little bit, and I think it's difficult to do some of the comparisons just from the standpoint of you can look at a score on paper and you don't necessarily know if people had their full roster, right? I'll use Rhodes Women in our league as an example. We played them Wednesday night as the first time they'd had their entire roster healthy since really 1st of December. And so, that just plays a lot of tricks on things, I think, as well. But we are where we are. I'm happy with the strides our team have made and the improvements that I think we're making. And we still feel like we got a long way to go. We got a tough one on the road at Anderson on Wednesday. But been happy with with the way our guys have done, the approach they've taken, the improvements that they've made as we've gone along.
It's certainly been impressive. And again, kind of that bottom group. And no, just trust me, no disrespect taken, by the way. My skin is thick and things slide off nowadays. But I mean, you're also in a group. There's a lot of great. I mean, parity in Division III men's basketball is what we've been talking about for years, and thanks to COVID, it's made it worse. And I don't mean that as a negative. I just mean that there's so much more and so many more teams available. Tell me a little bit more about this squad because, well, speaking of Brian Lane, I talked to Brian. I'm like, hey, how are things? He goes, well, we don't have any graduate programs, so I can't really hold on to any of my guys. So it's a bit of a struggle. I look in through your roster, and you don't have as many seniors as I expect. And then I remember the HCAC, you're all kind of the same. That you lost that year essentially.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, so we've been the beneficiary. Our point guard, I've got two seniors. Okay, our point guard, Isaac Hibbert, he's a basketball junkie, right? An econ major, but wants to be a college basketball coach, and he'll be a really good one. He loves it. He's a gym rat. When COVID came down the way it did, not this past summer, but the summer previous, and it really looked like the season was going to be obviously very different. He came to school last year, the first semester, but then sat out of school the second semester so he could come back and have a final year of regular basketball. And so that's been great to have him. But to Brian's point, we don't have graduate programs, right? I know Case is having a great year. I saw they had an outstanding win against Wash yesterday, right? And so I looked them up and I thought, oh, that's kind of neat. They got a couple guys that are 1 year guys, kind of a D1 thing, right? Where for us, I've got two seniors, I've got two juniors, the rest are freshmen and sophomores, and graduated some outstanding young men last year. I'm glad that they got to have the season that they did, but it wasn't the season that we're all used to, right? Shows like this were pretty different, right? It was kind of like we were just kind of trying to create opportunities for guys to play. And so, we're a young team. I start three sophomores. Probably about 3 weeks ago, they got to the point where they had played the normal number of games that typically you would play at the end of your freshman year, if you follow my math there, right?
Yeah, sure.
They played like 12, 13 games last year. So when you think about the development process of kids across the country, right? Like last year was tough.
Yeah.
And so, to a lot of us Division III schools, right? We're in the same boat. And so we're young. I don't think we have a dominant player right now. I don't have I was blessed to have, the last 5 years, a couple D3, hoops All-Americans and Cam Fales and Wes McKinney. We don't have that yet, but I think we've got a collection of really good players. Basketball people that watch our teams play generally reach out to me and tell me they really enjoy the way we try to play it. It has to be a 5-on-5 deal for us. We really move the ball and share it. We don't have one guy that we're trying to ISO and would love to have that guy. May need to have that guy, right, to really make a run in the tournament. But our guys have really bought in, and we've always been this way here. We've always really preached it and sold it to, it's our 5 against their 5. It's our way against their way. And I think that as we've gone through the year, we've gotten better at that. Our guys have bought into that. And that's really the type of team that we have. I enjoy coaching them every day. Very, very unselfish group. And again, like I said, we've got Isaac Hibbert and Noah Williams, our two seniors. Outstanding leadership from both of those guys. Really last spring, Isaac was not on campus. So it was Noah by himself leading a group of freshmen, and then we were recruiting another group, right? And so those two guys have been great, but I expect a lot of us coaches in Division III can tell the same story at some point, trying to navigate last year into this year, building our teams this year with having a very different year last year.
You mentioned Hibbert and Williams. Hibbert, 11.5 points a game, 5.5 rebounds a game, leader in assists by a long shot. He's probably averaging 2 or 3 a game. I mean, it's 91 over 17 games. I can do math later. Williams, 5.8 points a game, 2.2 rebounds a game. But you got Matt Munoz leading the team at 15 points a game, 5.5 rebounds. You've got Ty Houston, 15 points a game, 5.5 rebounds. Both of them shoot real well. Geez, Munoz is 58% from the floor, 39% from deep. Houston, 42 and 41. And you also have Max Greenamoyer, 12.5, almost 13 points a game, 4 rebounds. So while you talk about those three certainly are stirring the drink as well.
Oh, absolutely. We start off, with Ty. Ty is a tremendous two-way player. He's good offensively, but he's also one of the best perimeter defenders that I've coached. He can guard 1 through 4 and quite frankly guard 5 a little bit, so he's just got a real knack for being able to stay in front of the ball. He's got a little size and length, and then he scored the ball for us as well. He can shoot it. He's got a mid-range game, so he gives us a nice wing player. Munoz is kind of this, Matt's this new type of 5-man. He can post it and score back to the basket in ball screen situations. He can pop and shoot the 3. He's also a threat to put it on the floor and drive by against a bigger guy. Really versatile offensive player. Ty's a junior, Matt's just a sophomore, and then you mentioned Max as well. And Max is a pretty good two-way guy as well. He guards well on the perimeter and gives us that shooter out there that I think a good Division III team has, that's going to make it somewhere in the 40s, on the stat sheet. And while I say we don't have a one dominant player, I think we do have a collection of pretty good guys, which does give us the chance to find offense in a variety of different ways, which the best teams we've had, and I think the best teams that are out there, they can score in different types of games, and they can also score it in different ways. The 3-point shot is a big part of the game, but I think all of us coaches would say you still want to be able to have something at the basket, something that can get you to the foul line. And, so some of those guys give us that.
Quickly, you've got 6 games left in the regular season. Anderson, Earlham, Franklin, Manchester, Transylvania, Mount St. Joseph. What's the message to the team going into practices, going into games? What is it to the guys you're trying to stress at this point with a month left?
Yeah, great question. I think real simply, hey, let's continue to make it about the things that have got us to this point, right? Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Here at Hanover in the HCAC, right, you play on Wednesdays and Saturdays. So we generally take each 6-day block, right? We take Sundays off and we say, hey, let's try to go 2-0 in these 6 days. Kind of our phrase is you can't go 2-0 unless you go 1-0, right? And so I know that sounds kind of coined and cliche and a bunch of coach speak, but I've just always felt like it gets really dangerous, right, when you get too far ahead of yourself. Obviously, we are where we are. That's going to give me a chance to come on and spend a little bit of time with you, which is awesome, right? I'm sure that they're seeing these things and hearing these things. But our best bet, in my opinion, moving forward, right, is to just continue to stay focused on the things right in front of us. We'll practice at 3:15 today, go out and try to identify a couple things that we can be better at by tomorrow, sort of deal. And that's kind of my DNA. It's how I was brought up by Coach Beitzel here at Hanover. And I kind of feel most comfortable doing it that way, I guess.
Well, hey, I appreciate the insight as always. Love our chats. Wish I could have more time, but we got to wrap it up. And of course, you've got things to do better than this. So I appreciate the time nonetheless. But thanks for the understanding of who the Panthers are this season. As always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those tuned in?
Well, hey, no, again, like I said, and I've told you this before, and I think every time we talk, it's what I tell you, and I really mean it. What you guys do, heck, I think you and I were trading emails last night late. And I think your email to me today had a timestamp of like 1:30 a.m. So I mean, the work that you guys put into it is great for these student athletes and the fans. And I appreciate it. Like I said, it's great to see you through Zoom. We've kind of gotten used to that now, I guess. But like I said, appreciate the opportunity to be on, and maybe I'll see you again here down the road.
Yeah, I can't wait to see you on an airplane on the way to Vegas. How's that sound?
Absolutely.
Hey, if not before then, we'll see you soon enough. Thanks for the time. Really appreciate it. And yeah, 1:30. That's about right. Yep. Take care of yourself.
Get some sleep, man.
Yep. John Miller joining us from Hanover. By the way, I was up till probably 3, but that's a whole nother story. We got to get going. If you got questions for us, you can always send them to us. We'll now break down the top 25 coming up. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the NABC studios. We'll be back with more coming up. But first, I want to give some love to the NABC, of course, who helps with this show. The National Association of Basketball Coaches works to further the best interests of the game of basketball and the coaches and players who participate in the sport. The NABC thanks to nearly 5,000 member coaches, including the many Division III coaches who impact our game for the upholding the core values of leadership, advocacy, service, education, and inclusion. For more information on the NABC, head over to nabc.com. Back with more Hoopsville after this.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com. We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com. We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying the show. We fly so much by the seat of our pants sometimes that I'm literally listening to the conversation for the next segment, and we've just thrown out something out there. I love it. That's how we roll here. I also think it's nuts because I could be doing this so much better with a real producer and stuff. But, you know, pipe dreams. If you got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville@d3sports.com. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville as well. Lots of ways to interact with us. Going to keep things moving because we're tight on time. Top 25 is coming out later this week or later today. Actually, it probably could be out if it wasn't for me. I am one of a couple voters who have not gotten in their top 25 ballot yet. Maybe I do it by the end of the show or right after. We'll see. And maybe it can get out before the end of the show, but it's all going to depend on me a little bit. And I'm not, to be honest with you, I'm not positive of most of my ballot, especially the bottom half. But that's why we love discussing things. And joining us on the Blue Frame Technology Hoopsville hotline, it's our gents from last week, Mike Rainiak, who's in the upper left-hand corner, who's taken a page out of my book, I noticed. He has hung up a jersey in the background, the D3 All-Stars one. I don't have the one I love so much from them right now hung up, but it will be up for the marathon. Our Ryan Terrell one, which is always a trivia question. Ryan Scott joining us. He has some paraphernalia in the background too, but I don't see any jerseys. Guys, good to see you. Thanks for taking the time to join us.
Thanks for having us, Dave.
Absolutely. All right. It was a bonkers week. Listen, we always get used to in men's basketball having a week here, a week there, where you get some losses or some big games because you're in the CCIW, the WIAC or whatever. We're going to see some losses. We saw a ton. We saw a ton of losses from some good teams for varying different reasons. I mean, I'm scratching my head as to how Illinois Wesleyan lost to Concordia Chicago. I'm trying to figure out how in the world WashU loses 2. Maybe there's an injury. And then I'm like, oh, wait, Platteville came out unscathed. Oh, they only played one game, or they probably would have taken a loss by the way everything else was going. This week was nuts.
I have no idea what to say. I mean, it's one of those things. As we're going through the ballot, I ended up deciding to put Marietta up at number 2.
Wow.
I don't actually think that they're better than some of those teams, but what I think this week showed us is that those teams losing 2 games in the case of WashU and Oshkosh, or WashU and Illinois Wesleyan, they're beatable, right? These are teams that have really high ceilings, but they're beatable. And what Marietta has shown thus far this season is, unless they're playing Randolph-Macon, they're not beatable. They're coming out and playing even when they have a bad half. They're coming back and winning these games and winning by a sizable margin. And I feel like at this point, given what we saw this week, I had to reward that consistency.
I mean, there's a fair argument. I like how you put that. I mean, as much as I haven't been a fan of Marietta, and I think there's some weaknesses, you raise a very good point that they've at least gotten it done. And we could argue whether their competition is as tough, whatever. I mean, they played some tough competition, don't get me wrong. But that's an interesting take. Rainiac, your thoughts on it?
Great minds think alike, Ryan. The exact same philosophy. I put him at number 2. And at the same point in time, to your credit, Dave, after the week, I'm looking through box scores. I'm watching the games. I'm seeing whether or not there's injury, if it's COVID, if it's travel. I'm going through all the scenarios. And it was for lack of a better term, like Marietta, to me was a big jump just because they took care of business. And I think at the end of the day, you got to take care of business. That Concordia Chicago game, they were pretty much in control the entire game. That was versus Illinois Wesleyan. And, you go through kind of peaks and valleys as a team, and I know, Ron's gonna, I would be fearful whoever's playing Illinois Wesleyan next, because Ron Rose is gonna get them rocking and rolling. So I think for that philosophy, that's why I had Marietta at number 2 as well. Do I believe they're number 2? I don't know. But I think for what has happened in the top 25 this week, I had to reward them for just taking care of business.
No, it's a fair point. It just bonkers. By the way, I would have thought Ron would have had him ready for Concordia Chicago, but that could have been a trap game, to say the least. And by the way, a hell of a block at the end of regulation just to force that game to go to overtime. Ryan, you posted something about it being surprised or seeing a better camera angle or something that proved it was the right call. I thought the game camera was perfect.
That's what I mean. That was the fans in the arena were very upset that it wasn't a goaltending, but it clearly wasn't. But I'm not sure that you could see it from the floor angle in the same way that the camera.
Yeah,
no, it was pretty obvious from the camera view.
Yeah. All right, so let's get to our top 25. You guys are done with yours. I am literally scratching as we speak, shaking. I've had 10 different thoughts, and I finally walked away from it at 3 a.m. last night. Mike, we'll start with you. Do you want to go deep dive or dubious?
Ooh. Let's go with deep dive.
Who is it?
I'm going to throw out Case Western.
All right. I've done that one before. I like how you think. Go for it.
I know because they kind of just they're on the fringe. They were on the fringe last week. My guess is with the WashU, they're going to be getting more votes and be solid in the top 25 this week. I mean, obviously everybody's going to talk about the WashU victory, which obviously was a huge one for them. And in my opinion, this is one of the best Case Western teams I've seen in my tenure at Division III. Like the Hanover coach was talking before, they're led by some grad transfers, which is pretty cool. If you have that ability, like Tom McGinnis does at Case. I mean, Griffin Cornicker was a heck of a player at Middlebury, and now all of a sudden he's at Case setting a single game assist record, a couple weeks back at 15, which is nothing to shake a stick at. But they're really solid. They're 80% free throw percentage as a team, and they're getting to the line a decent amount. So they're not giving away games where you typically lose them as a team. So they're really efficient in how they play. Older vet team, I like kind of what they're doing. They're sharing the rock well. They're playing and in a battle-tested league like the UAA. I think they're going to make a really deep run. That's going to surprise some people because of Case Western's history in the past, not because of where they are currently.
People know I've liked them. I've had them in the top 10 for the last few weeks. Ryan, your thoughts?
Well, I think what I saw in the WashU game more than anything is that it seemed like they were really finally clicking into the roles, right? Because you've got, I think, 3 grad transfers that came in, all starters, which really can disrupt your chemistry. Guys who have very specific talents and skills that it's hard to work out when you step up. And when I think we saw Pendergast taking all the big shots down the stretch, which is what they need. He's their best shooter. He's the best playmaker. But you can also see earlier in the year him being a little more tentative and a little more willing to pass in those situations because he wasn't quite ready. And I think if they really are confident in the roles they're playing and everybody's on the same page, they can match up with anybody, as you saw. I mean, wasn't that WashU played a terrible game? I think Nolan had a bum ankle, but that's not the whole explanation for it.
No, good point. I like how everyone's jumping on my bandwagon now. Ryan, what's your pick?
So I'm staying in the UAA. Ooh. And I'm going to bring up Brandeis.
All right. I
don't think they're getting a vote this week. I had them in the poll up until the very last moment. I think they've looked good. I think they were pretty high in the preseason. They've gone through injuries. They had that significant stretch where they had to postpone games. They missed 2 full conference weekends. And so we're just now seeing them back. They lost at WashU. They lost at Emory. But those are games I think we would expect them to lose, especially a team that's sort of towards the bottom of the top 25, if we're going to say that. And I think they're playing really well. They're deep, they're talented, they're experienced. They might be the 4th best team in that conference, but that's still a pretty good team. And I didn't put them in the poll. I pulled them back out again because they do have a home game this weekend. They've got Emory and Rochester at home. And I think if they could do something there, then they'll be ready to be in the poll next week.
I like. If I were picking one, I just want to save time. I think I'd go with Hanover. The win over Wabash, having a really good season. You can kind of understand where I'm looking at teams sometimes if they're not on the radar and they're on the show. It's because I'm curious about a team. I want to learn more. Hanover would be my deep dive. Coach said what I would have said. I think they're a pretty dangerous unit and maybe a little under the radar for a lot of teams. All right, we'll jump over to dubious. Ryan, your choice.
Okay, so we're running out of teams that we haven't mentioned yet in this point. And I think given the number of losses we have, it's hard to be dubious about anybody. And so I'm going way down. I'm not even sure they're going to be in the poll, but I'm a little dubious of where Amherst is right now.
Yeah, I'm with you.
They finally got all the guys back healthy that we've been saying all year. Once they're healthy, this is going to be a really good team. And they didn't play super well in the 2 games that they've had everybody back. And so I wonder if this is where we finally pull the ripcord and we say maybe it's not quite their year. If we recall the last time we had a season in 19 and 20, we were saying the same thing, that they're really loaded, but they're a little hurt. And they didn't quite live up to billing. And I'm a little dubious that they're going to be able to get there, especially with how loaded the conference is.
Yeah, fair point. I like your thinking. Ryan, Mike, your first thoughts?
Well, you really put me in an awkward situation because I spent pretty much all of my 20s at Amherst, and I got
putting it on a
married in
tee,
Amherst.
sir.
I got married in Amherst. My family's from there, so and I'm a Lord Jeff, not a Mammoth. But I will say this, and knowing the team intimately, like I do, I do not believe that they're as strong as they should be. So for whatever it is, I know, it's not Marlin's fault, that the fact that they had the COVID year, so they couldn't gel right. And you have these players like Grant Robinson returning and things along those lines. So they didn't have to get the train really rolling. In my opinion, their out of conference schedule, like, really did not prepare them for the NESCAC. It is like, when you beat a team, no offense, by 60 or 70, that's with me as a coach, like, what are we getting out of that in January? And I think, like, that's where, and the NESCACs typically, do schedule lighter early on, but then they start to ramp it up along the way. And I just don't think that they're battle tested when they face the league, like a Williams, like a Middlebury, like a Wesleyan, and Tufts now on the horizon. To be honest, I'm ranking them probably the last of that group, just because of what I've seen, and for whatever reason, they're just not clicking. They've shown great moments, like Garrett Day is a phenomenal guard, Grant Robinson's a phenomenal guard, and they got, the typical shooters and long rebounders down below, but I just don't think, for whatever reason, it could be an early exit in the NESCAC tournament for them. Just what I see from a playing perspective.
Who's your dubious?
Amherst,
really? Wow.
Might as well not get back to Massachusetts ever again. I'm.
Oh, hold on. What? Oh, hey, Hickson. How you doing, sir? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, this is different. Different coach. So I think I'm going to go with Christopher Newport. And I know I'm going to offend some people.
No, but we haven't talked about him.
And I think I was going kind of digging through everything. And it's kind of similar with what my thought was to your point, Ryan, with Amherst. In my opinion, yes, they beat Randolph-Macon. Awesome. That's phenomenal. That was early on. But since December, and I had to get my stats in order so that I don't trip up. You had 13 games in December, from December to now. All right, only 2 wins of those, in my opinion, have been with teams that are substantially above 500. And that's way back when they played Lynchburg and Heidelberg, Hamden Sydney back on December 14th. Okay, 5 of the last 6 wins for them, and mind you, all these 13 games are wins, are versus, in my opinion, below 500 teams. Below 500, well below 500. And then 6 versus 500 teams. So, like, are they good? Yes. I'm not saying that they're not good. I had them ranked 4th in my poll. I don't think that they're ranked 4th. I really don't. But because of the chaos that ensued this week, if I'm going to go with Marietta at 2, I got to go with Christopher Newport at 4, because they took care of business, and they will continue to. And I hope they prove me wrong, because I think Rob's a great coach. But for me right now, I think it's a little bit of fool's gold with Christopher Newport.
Listen, you make good points. Ryan, do you have any counter thought?
Well, I mean, they've played much of their schedule at this point. Being in this C2C conference is really throwing them off a little bit. They've got 2 games with Mary Washington and 2 games with Salisbury coming up, and those are going to be tougher tests than they've had in 6 weeks for the most part. And those are good teams, but not great teams. This is a squad we know has great defense. They've been able to score, but as you said, when they haven't played a really strong team in so long, we don't know if the offense is where it's supposed to be. It isn't like the Christopher Newport schedules of old, where you knew they were going to be tested in conference. You knew they were going to have some games to keep them up. And we don't really know if they're going to be able to match the intensity they had right at the beginning of the season. They just haven't had that opportunity.
I'm fascinated. I know Coach K is probably listening. I'm looking forward to seeing what plays out. I know their schedule is what it is. I know there's times that I've underestimated them and they've stepped up. There's times I've overestimated them and they've fallen short. But they're always a good competitive team. So dubious, but certainly a top 25 squad.
And I've got them 8th. Which
I've got them 8.
Seemed a little low to me.
9.
And I think we always come back with Christopher Newport, right? 2 Final Fours in the last few years. I mean, those are teams that we didn't expect, right? Because they're fundamentally sound and they always come on in the second half.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I feel like they missed out as much as anybody with that canceled tournament, because they were really coming on. The offense was clicking in ways that it hadn't before. And it's a team that always gets better. So hopefully they'll not be thrown off too much by the schedule they've had to play this year.
All right, so let's go debatable now. By the way, my dubious, I don't really have one, as you said. Maybe we got to move forward with a new title. We can do something about head scratchers, teams that we think are good who aren't performing or whatever. Well, we'll maybe move on if we don't have any more dubious in the future years. But let's talk debatable. May only have one. I know that this is the one that was thrown out earlier. Mike, I don't know if you have a debatable or not. Ryan's intrigued me that he threw in at the last second. So I want to lean with Ryan first and just see where it takes us.
So the reason I'm pulling this up, one, I didn't have too many teams we hadn't talked about yet. And I noticed that sitting currently today, number 17 in the Massey Index is Guilford. It's a team I haven't thought a ton about. They have a pretty good record. They lost the 2 games right out of the gate. That wasn't great. And they haven't played a ton of the top teams in their conference just yet. But, this is a team that's always good, perennially up there, playing in a strong conference. I haven't seen them much. I think I watched 1 game so far this year. But the fact that Massey has them ranked up so high despite losses usually means that they're playing well, even in the games they lose. So I don't know if you guys have seen them, if you've heard much about it. Always a strong defensive team. So
yeah, I've caught bits and pieces. Listen, they're better now. Listen, we could go through the whole rigmarole that when they were a better team when Palumbo wasn't AD. And that might be what is happening. He's back to just focusing on coaching. I'm a little leery. Some of their losses kind of just rub me weird, but I can't sit here and tell you I'm not considering, when outside of Randolph-Macon, them as another ODAC team in there. Roanoke certainly in that conversation too. I had Hampden-Sydney, though they hit a couple bumps of late. I had them earlier in my top 25 earlier this year for 1 week. So I've been debating in the ODAC, and Guilford stands out as the one I should be voting for. I just don't know why yet. And that's why I haven't voted for him.
I mean, the true test is going to be Thursday. I think they play Randolph-Macon on the 3rd. So that's going to be a big test. I watched them play, maybe a half here, half there. They do play a little bit of a slower type of style, but that is Coach Palumbo's kind of jam. And they take care of the rock, and I think they know who they are. Like they're not going to be a up and down type of team. I think they're averaging somewhere in the 60s, and they kind of grind out games in the 60s, which is fine if that's who you are, which is what they are. So it's going to be interesting how that clashes on Thursday with Randolph-Macon and their style to see how that plays out. It is going to be interesting to see how that type of grind them out types of style kind of translates as they kind of move forward, because they know who they are. But what happens when you play that type of style, if you're in an up and down type of game and you need to make a comeback, it's very tough to make a comeback if you're playing the grind them out types of style. So I don't know how long term that's going to be, but I'm excited to see them play on Thursday versus Randolph-Macon for both sides, to see Randolph-Macon get a good test and to see kind of Guilford, rise to the opportunity.
And talk about a backloaded conference schedule here. The backloaded conference, because they've got, I think, 8 conference games left. 2 Randolph-Macon, Hampden-Sydney, Lynchburg, Roanoke. I mean, they certainly have an opportunity to put themselves right in the middle of the conversation if they go on a run here, right? And they also have an opportunity to just be written completely off, depending on how this next couple of weeks go.
I think that loss to Hampden-Sydney, who I had been considering, but has also taken a couple losses, especially 20 to Randolph-Macon, is kind of where I sit there hitting the pause button for a little longer. Yeah, they get through this. Oh, it's a whole nother conversation. Absolutely. Mike, quickly, do you have a debatable you want to bring up?
I got 2 because
we don't have time
in my
for
opinion,
2.
They're the same situation, same state. Nazareth and Oswego. They're the same. They're like the exact same situation. They're rolling in their conference.
Yeah.
They're not going to be tested. In my opinion, like I wish when I coached in the SUNYAC, we had this opportunity because it's awesome for them because like they're not going to be tested. Oswego 12-0 in conference. Okay, the bottom 4 teams have a combined 10 wins on the season. So like that's that's like 6 wins right there. The next closest one has 4 losses. So you're in good, and they run great stuff. And Jay's a great coach. And I think the whole league has great coaches. It's just one of those years where the roster turnover, I think, really hurt public universities, recruiting, whatever it is. You can go into COVID. Now, on the flip side, Nazareth, 6 out of their 9 conference opponents below 500. Bottom 3 have 2 total wins. They're only going to be really challenged, maybe by Utica, but they beat them by 40 points. And St. John Fisher, they beat by 6. And here's an interesting thing. Oswego's loss is to Nazareth. So they're pretty much the exact same team. I think both of them are really well coached. They both play really great styles. Like Nazareth is more of an offensive type of group, whereas Oswego, is leading the league defensively, like typically Jay does, Coach Leone at Oswego. So it's I think they're pretty much in the same situation, good teams. I think they're going to be higher as they start to get kind of down. I wouldn't be shocked if either of them make a really deep run in the tournament because they got all the pieces in place for both of their styles. Nazareth's more offensive, Oswego's more defensive, same situation. They're going to get both the automatic bid. I hate to jinx them both, but they are.
Well, you just did.
And I think like they're going to be an interesting take because down the line, I could see them being potentially higher than where they are. Like this week, I have Naz at 24 and Oswego at 19. I think they're going to be higher.
Well, again, Nazareth beat Oswego, who beat RPI, who beat Naz. So, screw us all up. We mentioned that before. Ryan, any quick thoughts on that one?
Well, I went back and forth with the Nazareth fan because I have them pretty far apart on my ballot. I've just thought Oswego has rounded into form, giving me a lot more confidence, at least, than Nazareth has. There's a lot of talent in Nazareth. I don't think that conference is as good, even though the SUNYX's down. I think it's still better than the E8. And, I just not totally confident in Nazareth just yet. We'll need a few more losses near the bottom of the poll, I think, before I bump them back in.
Bill Nelson and Jeff Van Gundy are on the line. They'd like to talk to you about your Nazareth choices. No, I'm just kidding.
But I really do love that team. I've liked them for the program for a while. I'm a big fan. I just have not bumped them up in yet. So.
I have Oswego on my ballot. I do not have Nazareth. It's because I just don't have enough damn room. And by the way, mine's done. Finished it. So she'd be in. It's a cluster. Anyway, gentlemen, thanks for the time. Appreciate it. Any final thoughts before I let you go, Ryan?
Just looking forward to finishing this thing out. It feels like we're actually going to get to a selection Sunday and have a bracket and all the things that we are looking forward to that we've missed for 2 years. So
knock on wood.
Yeah.
Mike, you?
Game of the week, Randolph-Macon, Guilford. If it doesn't live up to the hype, Ryan, I'm gonna be calling you.
Well, we have a phone call awaiting. One of you is calling the other. I can just tell. Hey, guys, thanks for the time. Appreciate it. Take care and enjoy the rest of the day.
Thanks.
Be well.
Ryan Scott, Mike Rainiak joining us on the Hoopsville hotline, talking about the double take. New top 25 should be out soon. If it's not finished now, there's one voter still awaiting. We'll see what happens. Can I take a break? Running a little bit behind. We got to get going. Lehman men's basketball coach Stephen Shulman will join us. Talk about his Lightning squad over 13-2, 7-1 in conference play. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com. Back with more after this.
Great moments are born from great opportunity. That's what you have here tonight. That's what you've earned here tonight. This is your time. Now go out there and take it.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at d3hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
For the love of the game. But for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that. A lot more.
Sure, the game is important. But as we work so hard to build both mind and body, it's more about team.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics. And in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. If you've got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us hoopsville@d3sports.com. You can join us on Facebook where we're live streaming the simulcast of the show, facebook.com/Hoopsville. Haven't seen any questions there, but if we do, we'll try and answer them. We're also on YouTube, youtube.com/Hoopsville. We're live streaming on simulcast there as well. So you can join us there if you need to as well. I want to thank Blue Frame Technology for their assistance in all of that. Switching gears, let's go to the fourth region, which is the Atlantic Old region. Cuniac, if you look there, it's got a pretty good race at the top. Baruch and Lehman are battling it out with a big game coming up. Well, I always like talking lightning because I'm a weather guy. Yeah, that's how I decided to bring Lehman into the show. I decided to talk about lightning. Not really, but it works out for the storyline. Join us on the Blue Frame Technology Hoopsville Hotline. It's Stephen Shulman, the head coach of the Lightning. We're 13-2 overall, 7-1 in Cuniac play. Coach, first and foremost, good to see you. It's been a while.
Hey, great to see you. Yeah, I'm excited to be on, and thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Hey, listen, great season so far. As I said, you look at how you're doing with a big game coming up against Baruch, obviously for the top of the conference. You've got to be pretty thrilled that at this point, 2 losses and just 1 in conference play as we head into the final month of the season.
Yeah, I'm very excited. Our seniors have really – we have 2 special seniors in Gian Batista and Isaiah Gathers, and they've both been great leaders, and they played well. They sat out the entire last year waiting to play this year, and so I'm really excited for them and the whole group.
When you look at, you talk about sitting out, we'll just jump to that. Obviously, that's the biggest interesting factor for everybody this season is whether players are able to come back, whether players decide to sit out. To some degree, the Cuniac kind of sat on its head. So many changes from John Jay leading the conference, technically 2 seasons ago, to everybody parked and unable to play last year for the large part. Players had to make some tough decisions. 2 guys decided to sit out. They're not taking that decision lightly.
Yeah, no doubt. We had multiple conversations. We couldn't even promise them really that we were going to play this year. It was in the city here, CUNAC conference, with leadership, very conservative in terms of COVID and pushing through. The trust, they went with the trust factor. I told them, look, I really think we'll be playing. We're close to graduating. They both needed a few more credits to graduate, so it worked out well.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about New York City, obviously been the epicenter to some degree of COVID. It's not a fair representation, but it certainly is where the hotbed was when everything started. And it's been the focal point for, as you said, a little bit more aggressive attack on the virus in terms of what publicly can do. That's going to be challenging as a coach because you don't have to go that far outside of New York to see it a little bit maybe looser, or conferences taking a little bit more risk, or schools. That's got to be tough to be sitting there and dealing. And I'm not right or wrong. I'm not making a judgment. I'm saying that's got to be tough for you.
It's a great judgment because it's extremely difficult. It's very difficult. Early on our non-league games, if you polled my guys, we played most of our games on the road, and our guys loved it because we went to Centenary. The place was packed. Even schools right down the road within the city, St. Joe's, Brooklyn. So it's real. We still haven't allowed fans here at Lehman yet. We're expecting that to change hopefully in the next few days. But it really is a challenge tested each week. It's a grind on the guys, but our motto this year has been, kind of a Marine motto of improvise, adapt, overcome. And basically that's what these guys have done. They just every day they get different commands, different things they need to do for the week. And they've been real sports. They've got it done.
Speaking of which, you've had a number of games either postponed or canceled. Date back all the way to the 29th. You had a game against Pratt that wasn't played, a game on the 29th of December. That was the 29th of November against Pratt. 29th of December. A game against Maritime called off. Purchase on the 10th of January. And your next game on the schedule was supposed to be New York and New York. That one's been called off. So you also have to adapt to different schedules. Are you hoping to make up any of those games? Some of those games, especially conference?
All the league games we're making up. All the league games we're making up. I'm really disappointed. Our Coaches versus Cancer tournament, that's a great event every year. We had Gettysburg. We need good wins, non-league. We had Gettysburg College coming in. But, it doesn't look like we're going to be making any of those up. So it looks like we're going to be playing a 22-game schedule. We have like a little travel ban going on where we're not supposed to leave the tri-state area because I've been in touch with, DeSales about having a little showdown game because they have a real good record. But right now, if I had to guess, I think we're just going to, the 3 games we lost are gone for good. We'll redo York and it'll be a 22-game season.
Yeah, I should point out, SUNY Poly Gettysburg, that was the other game that was taking place at your event. So there was another game we didn't even mention there. That we didn't get out. So it's a good point. Tri-State, DeSales is just outside. Darn, that stinks. We'll have to work on that. I know a few schools who might be trying to play.
I got to work on my administration allowing me to add different games.
Exactly.
Right now, it's just, it's hard to explain, but the CUNY in general with resources from COVID and things are real difficult right now.
And you guys played a little bit sooner conference tournament than everybody else. So as a result, your window is a little tighter than everybody else's is right now.
Yeah, there is talk about us moving it. Hasn't been confirmed yet. So we start on that Saturday. Normally the top 6 make it. Rumor is it's going to go to 8 because of COVID. They're going to allow everybody in. And there's also talk about pushing it back to the following Tuesday, which would give us a little time to make up games if we have to. Sure. But everybody in terms of league has been grinding. They've rescheduled all the games. So we look good to go for the rest of the year.
Looking at your team again, individuals, you're led by Isaiah Geethers. Listen, 25.5 points a game. And what blows me away is then it's like, okay, the second guy's probably what, 10, 12 points a game? No, 21.7 for a Batista. 10.5 for, I'm going to say Mo's last name wrong, so I apologize. Indricio?
Close, Idrisu.
Oh, it is Indricio. I was going there first. And then really 10 points a game also for Will Feldman. But it blows me away. I'm used to seeing a team that might have 120-plus point score, but the higher that number is, the less likely you're going to see someone else high in double figures. You got 2 guys at 22 points a game or more. That's significant. And I got to imagine, is it hard to manage?
Well, it's not hard to manage because these 2 dudes are really good players, Dave. They haven't really got a chance to get out that far, but both of them, they were first team all-conference players back in 2019. So you add 2 years of age to them. They're both really, really good players. But yeah, in terms of the balance, it always is a concern. We're that third and fourth guy. We need that third and fourth guy. Mo's been doing it lately. So when we get a good contribution from Mo or Will Feldman or Juan Fernandez, then we become really unbeatable. The games that we struggle are when we sometimes having trouble the third scorer getting stuff done. But Isaiah and Gian, he's like a do-it-all type of guy. So you see he's the second leading scorer, but he leads our conference in assists and he's second in the conference in rebounding. So he's an incredible player. So both of them are just really high-level players. So it is a challenge to get the balance, but it's a good problem to have, having 2 really good players.
Yeah, Gian, we should point out, a double-double at 21.7 points a game, 11.1 rebounds a game. And then, as you said, he also has the assist total. He's got 109 out of 15 games. So he's not double digits there, but that would be a bit of more of a story if he was. But then again, you talk about Isaiah, Gian, and Mo, and Will. Those four, they combine for 47 of your 83 points on average, per game. That's a big weight. Now, granted, it's four of them, and so you're going to have to guard each guy, but it falls off precipitously after that. Does that put more pressure on making sure they don't foul out, that you guys find ways on offense to get clicking so that defenses can't key on you, whatever? Does that add more pressure? Or is it because there's four guys, go for it?
No. The foul trouble is definitely something, and we've maneuvered it great all year. We've had multiple, I don't know if you know Hunter, they're running kind of like the system this year.
Yeah.
When it's crazy. And we actually went up 30 on Hunter in the first half, and both Zay and Gian had 2. And I'm like, we're up 30. Let's get them both out. And before you knew it, at halftime, it was 10, so we've had to, but I don't want to say we have, Marquise Johnson, we've had other guys who can really play. So it's not a lack of talent. Like, it's not like we have 3 or 4 guys. We have the depth. It's just these 2 guys are freaking good, and teams have trouble stopping them. Even a Baruch, who's probably the best defensive team in our conference, has trouble stopping these 2 guys. So they're really, Gian specifically, he's a notch above. He's a really good Division III talent.
It's interesting to hear, and I appreciate your insight on those guys. You brought up Baruch. You guys played them back on the 19th, lost 71-67 in a barn burner game, only the second loss of the season, the previous one coming to Southern Maine. You'll take them on in the penultimate game of the season as of now, barring any changes to the schedule, on February 12th. Baruch obviously looks good. They're at the top of the conference, a game up on you, undefeated in conference play, off to a pretty good start. Again, back to the weather analogy, I chose Lightning over Baruch. But what is it about that team, and can you get them again? Can you get the win back, as it were, that makes them so good and makes that matchup so tough for you guys?
Well, Baruch is just the perennial, one of the top teams in our league. We're usually up there too. But the thing with Coach Alisi does is they're just a terrific man-to-man defensive team. We like to compare them a little bit to Virginia, a little faster than that, but it's the same concept where even if you're very offensively talented like my team, you go into Baruch and, getting 70 becomes difficult. And that adds a lot of frustration and strain on your team when they're used to kind of scoring 80, So he just does a great job defensively. He does a great job of scouting your talent. We joke with Baruch all the time, and my players joke about it. It's nothing that it's not a fact. His guys know my sets. Baruch's players know my sets better than my actual players do. He's got 4-year guys. We have a lot of college players, a lot of transfers. So we have more of a 2-year system, I would say, at Lehman, where we bring a lot of guys in and they play 2 years and then graduate going against that 4-year system. So it's always been a good challenge, but we've done very well against them. So we're looking forward to that game. But this is a tough week for us. We got City College tomorrow. Then we got a makeup game against Pratt on Wednesday. Saturday, we got Brooklyn at home. And then we got Sunday, a makeup game against York. So we got 4 games this week. We're just trying to survive this week.
Yeah, I was going to say, before that, you've got this crazy week ahead of you. And maybe to some degree, that losing the game on Saturday is helpful, though it's going to backfire because you got to play them at some point, obviously, York and New York. How do you pace yourselves through this? Because you'll be, again, on the road against CCNY, at home against Pratt and Brooklyn, then on the road against John Jay before the final 2 at home against Baruch and Medgar Evers. What are you talking to the team about? What are you talking about in practices, in the locker room, et cetera, to get through this week?
Yeah, this is a big week for us. We're just, I don't know. We're just going to, the motto is here, one day at a time. We're just going to go. We got to concentrate on the City game. Get that. The non-league game back to back. I actually think, we may go a little NBA and go with a little bit of load management, and we'll play everybody, but we'll play the bench a lot more in that game and just see how it goes. because it's not like we have to win our tournament at the end. It's kind of irrelevant. I don't want to,
well, losing some of those non-conference didn't help.
It isn't going to really matter. So best thing is just staying healthy, trying to win as many league games as we can, and just continue to get better. That's what we're going to try to do.
Yeah, I was going to ask, 2 losses on the season. Let's just argumentatively say you take one more and you're at the at-large. So you beat Baruch in conference play, you somehow lose it in the tournament, and you're an at-large with 3 losses. Had you played Gettysburg and maybe gotten some other non-conference games, maybe you're in a situation that you can get in? Or is this always a mentality of, no, just the way our system,
it's not always been my mentality, and it's not always been our league's mentality. We really have tried to educate our league, some of the veteran coaches with the new coaches, about the SOS and about strength of schedule, how, it's all math, and if you play the right non-league games and you can get your bottom teams to win half of them, it really helps you. But this year, just doing my advanced math, I think we got to win the tournament. So, we'll see. I mean, in 2018, we really thought we had it. We lost to Staten Island by 1 in the championship. We had beaten Staten Island by 1 and then in overtime. And then we lost to them in the championship. We thought we had an outside chance, but SUNY Farmingdale got in. But they had beaten us head-to-head in overtime in their place. So most of the time, it's you just got to concentrate on those 3 games at the end.
Yeah, I can understand. Tough spot to be in, but at least you know your avenue versus it's unsure. Hey, Coach, appreciate the time. As always, we always give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those tuned in?
No, just, hey, thanks for having us on. And everybody out there, keep grinding through it. And we're really looking forward to playoff time.
Well, thank you. I hope you dug out from the blizzard okay.
Yeah.
And
but we're ready to go.
There you go. Enjoy the rest of the grind. I know it'll be tough, but it'll be fun. And we'll look forward to talking to you down the road.
All right, Dave. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you. Stephen Shulman joining us here on the Blue Frame Technology Hoopsville Hotline. Big grind ahead. CCNY, Pratt, Brooklyn, and John Jay, as he said, coming up here in the span of 8 days. And then Baruch and Medgar Evers to finish things off. We'll take another break. When we come back, we'll go all the way up down East Maine, talk women's basketball. In Castine, we'll talk to Maine Maritime. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the NABC studios. More after this.
NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics, and in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's more opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III.
I did receive academic scholarships. Just being involved on campus, being a leader, all those things combined kind of get me recognized. It's a great experience for me.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
Football has taught me a lot throughout my life. It's definitely had a huge imprint on who I am as a person. Competing at a Division III level created that opportunity for me to go to college. Not only was I the first one in my family to graduate college, but I was really the first one to even go. Being the first one, I'm breaking that cycle, and now that I've graduated, I'm not sure what's the next step, but I know I have a lot of doors open. And a lot of those are open because I played football and ran track here at Otterbein.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. You might see the door open and a little puppy show up. Bear with Tucker. He's kind of turned into the unofficial Hoopsville mascot. If you got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville, hashtag Hoopsville. Email us hoopsville@d3hoops.com. We're simulcasting the show on Facebook, facebook.com/Hoopsville. Also simulcasting it on YouTube, youtube.com/Hoopsville. If you got questions there, I'll try and answer them there as well when I spot them. I'm literally refreshing screens to see if it's there. So there you go. You can always email us hoopsville@d3sports.com. I don't see anybody emailing us in, but c'est la vie. I can tell you the top 25 in men may get out before we get off the air here tonight or today, because I know all the ballots are now in. If it does, we'll mention it. All right, so let's talk. We'll go all the way up to down East Maine or mid coast, I guess it is. There's the puppy showing up. Hey, pup. Hey, bud. He's in. So if you hear any barking, now you know why. Welcome in, buddy. Got a bone down there for you. Head up to Castine, and a team that has really played well for the last few seasons. Why we haven't talked maybe more with them, I don't know. But Maine Maritime women's basketball is having a tremendously good season. And, well, we scheduled them later because we wanted them later in the year, but we'll get them anyway, especially after they just withstood a blizzard this last weekend. So joining us on the Blue Frame Technology Hoopsville Hotline, it's Craig Dagan, the head coach of the Maine Maritime Mariners. And Coach, first and foremost, thanks for taking the time. Second of all, you have dug out, right? Or did you just spend the whole time at the arena?
No, we're all dug out. First of all, I appreciate you having me on, but we're all dug out. We were actually in Vermont while Down East Maine was
right.
This weekend. We were in Vermont and we got an extra night up there to avoid the storm. We got back Sunday morning and everything was cleaned up when we got home. So the timing was perfect.
Perfect timing.
There you
By
go.
the way, you might hear Tucker whining in the background, folks. That is just our ambient noise for the show. There he is. He wants out. He ain't getting out until this show's over. Craig, first and foremost, great season, as I said. 16-2 overall, 10-0 in NAC play. As you said, you were out in Vermont, so you got through that weekend pretty good. We'll get into the nitty-gritty of the conference in a bit, but especially considering your school coming out of COVID. And I say that because it's not like Mariners can just, hey, I'm going to hang out for another year here at the academy and not worry about going to school another year or prolong my professional career another year. You kind of have to roll with this, right? So you're still 16-2, playing well, having a good season despite what COVID brought to you. Tell us about the twists and turns.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's been an interesting year for us as it has been for everybody else. And knock on wood, we've been pretty fortunate to get through, this latest surge that hit everybody in January. We've had a few issues, but for the most part, we've got through everything okay. And thanks to our staff here, our training staff and the medical professionals, we've done a good job with that. And hey, listen, this time of year, adding COVID to the mix, but staying healthy is a really important piece of the puzzle when you get to January. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why we've been pretty consistent as we've had our core group of kids been able to play together and stick together. And so far, so good. But we got 2 more weeks to get through all this stuff. And as you know, COVID is a mystery to everybody. So we'll see what happens in the next few weeks. But we've been very fortunate in playing good basketball right now.
Again, I was looking back, you had a pretty good season the year before COVID, the year before that, pretty good as well. This has kind of been building over time. What has been the secret in the sauce?
Recruiting. We got good players.
Yeah, but that's not easy to do to an academy like yourself.
Hey, listen, I think that's one of those big misnomers out there too. I mean, most of my players, I don't have any players in the regiment, which people would deem Maine Maritime Academy, the regiment of midshipmen, and that's a big part of our school and our heritage and who we are. But my players, business majors, biology majors, engineering majors. So not the same obstacles that some of the other kids that attend Maine Maritime have to deal with. So we've been fortunate from that standpoint too, but recruiting, I mean, we've got some really talented kids, and despite the last few years of success, we did it with a lot of older kids. We're super young. I mean, we finished the game the other day with 1 senior and 4 freshmen on the floor. And, and I even consider our sophomores, which we have 2 or 3 that are contributing on a regular basis. They're freshmen. They played 3 games last year. So aside from our 2 seniors and 1 junior, every other kid on our roster are freshmen and sophomores. So we've been fortunate to be successful early on. And certainly the future is bright. As long as I don't get in their way, good things will happen for them.
No, listen, I totally agree with what you say about considering them freshmen. There's a lot of coaches I talk to who consider that. I don't know if I necessarily agree about getting in their way, or not getting in their way. Again, those seasons I was talking to, and season ended 2018, you were 20-8, 13-5 in conference play. In both 2019 and 2020, you finished 12-2 in conference play, 19-7, 20-6 overall. So that's kind of what I'm looking at there. Looking back at this season, hey, listen, a loss to Springfield until this past week looked pretty solid. This past week, unfortunately, they lost to, but it was also 77-45. He lost to Bates, who's having a tremendous good season as well, 67-42. The only thing I take from that is two really good teams, two really rough losses.
Yep.
Does that mean, and I don't be disrespectful, I'm trying to find the right words. Does that mean this program, as good as it is, isn't at that level? Or is it just two bad games?
No, 100%. We're not there yet. In Springfield, listen, I think we were winning at the end of the first quarter. It was a 6-point game at halftime. And in the second half, they're juniors and seniors, and they're a very upperclassmen-laden team, overwhelmed our young players. And same with Bates. Bates is they've got a veteran team, and they're really, really good. And we're not ready there. I mean, we're not there yet. And I think part of our struggles in those two games was our inexperience for those young players in those types of big games. And unfortunately, we were supposed to play Bowdoin around the new year, and because of COVID, we lost that. We lost Colby, which would have been another great game for us. We play them every year because our schedule got rearranged here at Maine Maritime. So we've lost a couple other really good non-conference games that would have helped us coming down the stretch. But I would agree with your assessment. We're a really good team, but we're not a great team yet. And I think that's just going to take some time and experience and more big games under the belt for these younger players.
Yeah, and to that point, you lost those two games. I know the schedule in NAC isn't exactly ideal. You're pairing up games. You went to play 2 at Presque Isle. You went and played 2 at Linden. Wednesday, you'll be at Husson, which is a makeup game from earlier in the season before traveling to Maine Farmington. Then you've got Maine Augusta at home. Of course, for any of you out there, non-D3. Before finishing up with Husson, is there any room to make up with their schedule and your schedule to try and get those games in, to try and bolster the resume?
Yeah, we're hoping. Actually, I just got off the phone, was talking to Sasha at Bowdoin, and there's hopefully going to be an opportunity for us to get that game in, but there's a lot of factors that go into it, and we're trying. And that's something for us, especially from a regional ranking standpoint, that's important for us to get that game on our schedule. We're looking at options down the road for that. And you're right. I mean, listen, our conference top to bottom isn't nearly as strong as some of the other conferences in New England. And hopefully our coaches in our conference continue to work on that and strengthen their schedules so that when it does come to regional rankings and at-large bids, we can continue to progress in the way that we need to in order to get more teams in the NCAA tournament in the future. But that's why those non-conference games are so critical for us. And when you don't get them in, it does take a big hit when it comes to regional ranks and those types of things. But, for our kids, they can only play who they play, and they can only play who their coach tells them they're going to play from night to night. And we've got a couple big ones coming up, and Husson has been pretty dominant in our conference over the last 4 or 5 years. And they're a team that we got to go through in order to win a conference championship. We know that, and our kids are not old enough to understand that yet, which is a good thing. And they're super excited to play against them on Wednesday night. That game's been a long time coming.
I was just double checking the map. I know Maine well, but of course the one joke in Maine is you can't get there from here. Bowdoin, that ain't an easy trip. You're either going out of your way, or you're going out of your way, or you're going out of your way to get there. Those are the 3 main routes. All of them take more than 2 hours if you're lucky. Yeah, I mean, that's a
2-hour trip for us, though, Dave, is pretty easy. Everything's 2 hours for us, with the exception of
except for Husson.
Away. So, for Bowdoin, that's right down the pike for us. So, a 2-hour trip on in this state is a pretty reasonable drive.
Well, that's true, and I will say it's not tourist season.
True story.
Some of those routes are a lot easier than usual.
And Castine, you can get to Castine in a bunch of different ways, by land and by water, my friend. So there's multiple ways to get
and
here.
Air. Yeah, there's lots of ways. Oh, I'm aware. Let's talk about your team individually. You're led by Lauren Cook, a sophomore, aka freshman, 13.7 points a game. Mackenzie Monson, 9.5 points a game, also a sophomore. Miles Stanton, a junior. I'm sorry, no, I didn't put those in order. Hang on a second. Thought I had them in order. There we go. Because I skipped over Maria Barella, a freshman, at 12.5 points a game. Then Lauren Plissy,
yep.
Plissy, senior at 11 points a game. Ariana Moore, I can do it easily, 10 points a game, and then Monson at 10 points a game, 9.5. So I didn't have them in the right order. But you got a mix there of that underclassman, especially in one senior. But to your point, that's why you're not there yet, right? It's this underclassmen that are leading the way.
Absolutely. And I mean, of the 5 kids you just mentioned, 2 are sophomores with very little experience and 2 are freshmen. And, that's why. And this weekend was a really great example of that. We went up to Linden and we won Friday night by 50 points on the nose. And then the next day, we're down 13 at the end of 3 quarters and have to outscore our opponents 26-6 to win a game in the 4th quarter. And that's kind of in a nutshell who we are. But for a young team, these kids are showing a lot of poise. They love to play basketball, which I think is really, really important. They love to get in the gym every day and put in the work. And we've got a great mix of guards. We've got some post players. Of the 5 you talked about, 3 are guards and 2 are post players. So, I mean, we've got some kids that can really score the basketball. I think we're nationally ranked in, 10 different categories from an offensive and defensive standpoint. I like where we're at. Like I said, we got a lot of growth still to be had, but this team's getting better every single day, and we're playing the right kind of basketball at the right time of year.
Mascot is quieted down. Hey, outscoring your opponents by 16 a game. You're out-rebounding your opponents by 15 a game. While on top of that, shooting 44% to your opponent's 28.5, shooting outside the arc at 37% to your opponent's 20. There's a lot on here. And granted, and by the way, assist numbers. I might have to call Steve Peed. These assist numbers are ridiculous. 20 assists per game to your opponent's 9.8. I'm just joking a little bit, but statistically a lot's there. And granted, it might be the testament to your schedule, and it might be a testament to the opponents you've played, but we're also 2/3 of the way through the season, if not 3/4. Some of that kind of evens it off. You've got some really amazing stats that jump off the page.
Yeah, I mean, statistically speaking, this is one of the best offensive years we've ever had. And going back to, 06-07, which was nationally ranked team and one of the best teams that's ever played here. This team's doing as much, if not more, from an offensive standpoint. And listen, we're doing just enough defensively. We can be a lot better on that end of the floor, for sure. And I think this weekend showed that and our inconsistency there. And I think some of the numbers are accurate with what you said. The opponents, we've got to play stronger opponents in our non-conference schedule, which we alluded to that we lost a few of those games. But yeah, I mean, our kids can score the ball, and we've got 2 kids on the floor that can shoot it. We've got a point guard that's dynamic and can get downhill. And aside from averaging 10 points a game, she's averaging almost 5 assists per game as well. We've got a stretch 4 that's not only is she a great scorer, Ariana Moore, but she's got like a 46 to 20 something assist to turnover ratio. And then I've got a senior post player who's 4th in the country in blocks per game and was just named the conference player of the week. She's having a great year for us, averaging almost a double-double while being one of the best shot blockers in the country too. So we've got a good mix of things. And then we've got some really talented players coming off the bench too. And as I said, I'd like to take a lot of credit for it, but we're recruiting players that love to play basketball. And I think that's showing on a daily basis. They're just their energy and their passion when they get in the gym just to want to get better every day.
Fascinating. Hey, by the way, speaking of your time, you mentioned we got you at just the right time. Had to get you late in the show because you had your first regional conversation in terms of Iraq. Just a hint that everybody does their mock rankings this week. We'll talk more about that on Thursday's show ahead of next week's first regional rankings. I don't remember if you've been on the committee before, but meeting on a Monday instead of a Tuesday, a little bit of a different schedule this year. I'm not asking for particulars, but just dusting off the cobweb, essentially. I mean, this hasn't been done since 2020 because we had none last year. What was the process like? How was it? How was the call? What's the experience, et cetera? Just give us a general sense of kind of getting into the swing of what we're used to doing at this time of year.
Yeah, it's actually kind of good. And that was my first time on this call today. And it's an interesting process. I mean, you're really dissecting teams from your region with, just about everything that they do. It's stripping things down and head to head and all those other things. And I think truth be told, Dave, I think every coach should have to be on this committee at some point in time because it gives it's given me some perspective in regards to the importance of strength of schedule, the importance of getting the proper games within your region, those types of things. But it's good. And I think that, New England is loaded with so many good basketball teams. Obviously, the NESCAC conference is one of the better conferences in the country. And because there's so many Division III teams in this area, it's actually been split up into 2 regions now, which could be very helpful for New England getting more teams in the NCAA tournament too. But it's an interesting process. It's an exciting process. And, I think that we're going to have some very deserving candidates, teams come out of our conference to represent us when the NCAA tournament rolls around.
How much is missing games because of COVID that haven't been made up? And granted, it's win-loss percentage versus hard win and loss numbers. But how much do you think teams who aren't going to be able to get a full complement of games, 25 to 27, how much do you think that's going to play a factor?
I think it's going to be a big factor this year. I really do. I mean, I think that there is such a discrepancy right now in our region between, there's some teams that have played 17, 18 games, and there's some teams that have only played 12 or 13 games. And, with 2 weeks to go, the chances of those schools making up the games that they missed they may get a couple in, but getting all of them in are going to be pretty difficult, pretty challenging. So, I'm not sure how many teams will even get the full 25 game slate in this year. I think the amount of teams across the country that get the full 25 will be pretty minimal this year. But depending on which games you're missing, like I said, for us in particular, we lost Wheaton, which is in the NUMAC, which is a good conference. We lost Bowdoin, which is in the NESCAC, those games are pivotal and important when it comes to the RAC and those types of situations. So, and I'm sure we're not the only team that has missed out on an opportunity to play teams that would, if you win, and even if you lose, those teams are important with your strength of schedule. So it's got to be a factor. It's something that we talked about today, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out in the next couple of weeks and what teams can get for made up games and what they can't get done.
Hey, Coach, really appreciate the time. I didn't dawn on me that you did time it perfectly to avoid the blizzard to get everything cleaned up for yourself on the way home. That was ingenious. But I do appreciate the time, appreciate the insight on the team. Thanks for the regional questions there as well. I appreciate great to get a sense of things. By the way, I quickly looked up your trip to Presque Isle. Now they played at your place, but
they did play at our place, thankfully.
Yeah, you're only second on the most Eastern teams in D3 because of Presque Isle.
True story.
I noticed the trip has one of 2 routes. One is to head up into Bangor, up I-95 to Holton, and then straight up Route 1. The other is to take Route 9 over to Woodland, Maine, Baileyville, and then up Route 1 from there.
We're not doing that. We're straight up 95, my friend.
Listen, my family, we're from the end of Route 9. Technically, grew up in Chicago. Then we moved to the end of Route 9, right there in Woodland, Baileyville. I'm going to tell you not to do that.
Hold on, okay. You're from the Woodland area?
Yeah. I moved there when I turned 12 years old. Yeah.
I had no idea. Some of the best players we've ever had here have been Woodland kids. Julia Knights was a tremendous player here at Maine Maritime.
Yes.
Yeah, Caitlin Lehman was a great player here for us. We've had some really good players from Woodland.
The Dragons.
Yeah.
Interesting enough, I've been at only one school that wasn't purple and gold. Every school I've been to has been purple and gold. Anyway, remember Ashley Marble, who played at Southern Maine?
Of course.
Her mother was principal of the elementary school down the street from my house.
Absolutely.
She wasn't principal when I was there.
Everybody in the country at some point in time should have to go to a Woodland Callis game just to see, right? Everybody.
That's insane.
Once.
Yeah, talk about 2 real rural towns out in the middle of nowhere coming together, and no one likes each other that day.
And they love their basketball.
Oh, they're passionate. There's no ice hockey there, so it's all about basketball. Anyway, my point was, don't go that route.
Right, we won't.
That's just not worth the hassle. The old Route 9 would have killed you anyway.
Well, we got a lot of kids that have never experienced rural Maine that are here now. We got kids like Sydney Briscoe.
And you're not even rural.
Englewood, New Jersey. They're coming into Maine and they're like seeing these things for the first time. So they're getting an education with the rest of the country.
And they're still only putting a toe in the water of rural Maine.
True story.
Let's just call that a spade.
True story.
No, we'll be hopefully back up this summer to visit. My parents have moved to a lake for a year, so we'll hopefully get some time up there. We were supposed to be up
That's
at Christmas, but didn't work out. Hey, Coach, appreciate the time. Appreciate the insight. Thanks for humoring me as well. As always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuned in?
No, yeah, listen, first of all, like I said, I want to thank you for this opportunity, and I want to thank you for all that you do. I think D3 Hoops is such a great resource for us. I know I go on it every day and listen to your broadcasts, and I appreciate what you do for Division III basketball on the men and women's side. And continued success with everything that you're doing, and hopefully we have the same continued success on our end too.
Well, thank you, Coach. Appreciate the time as always. Good luck. Stay sane. Stay sane. Seriously, stay sane. Stay
That
warm.
too.
All of that. And we'll look forward to catching you up down the road.
Okay, take care. Appreciate you.
Craig Dagan joining us here on Hoopsville, Blue Frame Technology, Hoopsville Hotline. I was worried there at the end. Maybe Mike was off, but apparently you guys heard all that. Quick note, the Steve Peed comment was because he's a former sports information director like Jason Fine, who's now AD, so I had to give a little hard time about stats. Hey, we'll take a break, wrap things up here on the show. You listen to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com. Back with more after this.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
In any way that we can.
To get a friend home safe.
To never blame the victim.
It's on us.
To stand up.
To make our community safe for all. It's on us.
It's on us to look out for each other at parties.
It's on us.
To be more than just a bystander.
To step up and say something.
It's on us. All of us.
To stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
Football has taught me a lot throughout my life. It's definitely had a huge imprint on who I am as a person. Competing at a Division III level created that opportunity for me to go to college. Not only was I the first one in my family to graduate college, but I was really the first one to even go. Being the first one, I'm breaking that cycle, and now that I've graduated, I'm not sure what's the next step, but I know I have a lot of doors open. And a lot of those are open because I played football and ran track here at Otterbein.
There are over 480,000 college athletes. Only 2% would go pro. That means over 470,000 will not get a shoe contract. No autographs. No private jets. No fan clubs. No Hall of Fame inductions. Instead, they will walk away with something much more valuable.
The National Association of Basketball Coaches works to further the best interests of the game of basketball, the coaches and players who participate in the sport. The NABCU thanks its nearly 5,000 member coaches, including the many Division III coaches who impact our game, for upholding the core values of leadership, advocacy, service, education, and inclusion. For more information on the NABC, head to nabc.com. I want to thank our NABC partners for their help in broadcasting today's show. Also want to thank D3Hoops.com, the Women's Basketball Coaches Association, and Blue Frame Technology and their Team One Sports app for their assistance as well. We're going to get that top 25 before we go. So we're going to announce the top 25 in men's basketball for this week before it is published. So stay tuned. In a couple minutes, we'll have that for you. We'll break that one down for you. Have a little fun with it. If you got questions for us before we wrap up, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us hoopsville@d3sports.com or join us on Facebook, facebook.com/Hoopsville. We're live simulcasting the show. Still checking to see if we have questions in there, but I haven't seen any. It's a little wonky on how to check Facebook for those questions. So we are on the lookout for them. If they've been sent and we missed them, we apologize, but we haven't seen them as of yet. So there you go. So let's just recap. This Thursday we'll be on the air with the marathon show. That'll air starting about 12 or 1 o'clock Eastern that day and going till 8 or 9 Eastern. Let's see. That show's coming together. We'll finalize details tomorrow. So start looking on our Twitter accounts for updates on that starting tomorrow. Then next Monday, we're on the air at, again, 1 p.m. Eastern time due to schedule conflicts. Then the following Thursday will be a pre-tape show, which is tough because regional rankings are coming out and all that. So it's going to be a little bit wonky, but we'll get that done. And then hopefully the 14th, we'll be back to our normally scheduled time at 7 o'clock Eastern time. So there you go. So we had guests from regions 1 and 2 combined, 4, 6, and 8 today. So Thursday, on top of our marathon guests, we'll also have guests from regions 3, 5, 7, and then 9, 10 combined. Those are how we break down our regions in case you're curious. Now let's talk about that men's top 25. It's going to be out here momentarily. We'll tell you right now who's how it breaks down. Number 1, Randolph-Macon. No surprise there. They did get all 25 first place votes. So that is a new. Randolph-Macon, the unanimous number 1 pick. Number 2, Wisconsin-Platteville. We should check on where things moved here. Hold on a minute. Here we go. So I got to move some screens here so I can look easier. So Wisconsin-Platteville moves up from 5th to 2nd. They gained about, almost 50 points. Marietta moves up from 6th to 3rd. Christopher Newport moves up from 8th to 4th. Wisconsin-Oshkosh goes from 4th to 5th. And they lost about 50 points. Yeshiva moves from 7th to 6th and gained about 30 points. St. Joseph's of Connecticut moves from 9th to 7th. They gained about 38 points. Wisconsin Lacrosse moves from, where were they? They were in 10th. They're up to 8th. WashU falls from 3rd to where are they? 9th. Illinois Wesleyan fell from 2nd to 10th. Lost a ton of points. Mount Union stays at 11th. Maryville moves up from 13th to 12th. Williams moves up from 14th to 13th. Whitworth is in the 14th spot. They're up 2 spots. Wheaton is in the 15th spot. They're up 3. Swarthmore is in the 16th spot. They're only down 1. I dropped them a ton, but they're only down 1. Only lost 40 points. Oswego moves from 22 to 17 this week. Mary Hardin Baylor is up to 18th. That's up a 3. Johns Hopkins is down 7. They were in 12th. They're now in 19th. Emory moves up from 24 to 20th. Elmhurst is 21st now. They were 19th, so they fell 2 spots. Augsburg was, where are they? 23rd. They're up 1 spot to 22nd. Case Western Reserve returns to the bowl. They had fallen out last week, so they were 24. Then they fell out. Now they're 23. WPI falls to 24. That's from 17th. And Nazareth is in the poll. They were in the poll last week as well. Looking at who may have dropped out. Looks like Wesleyan fell out of the poll. Let's see. Emory, Augsburg, Oswego. Yep. So Wesleyan fell out of the poll. They were 20th. And I think that's it. They're the only ones that fell out of the poll. I don't know about receiving votes category, but there you go. So Randolph-Macon the unanimous number 1 in the men's poll, 625 votes. Nazareth sitting in 25th. They're at 84 votes. By the way, Nazareth almost doubled their points. They were at 41. Now they're 84. What that does tell you is some of the voters have consolidated. We've consolidated and are voting a bit more. Less teams are receiving votes. But again, I don't have the receiving votes. But there's your men's top 25. Randolph-Macon, unanimous number 1. Platteville 2. Marietta 3. Christopher Newport 4 and Oshkosh 5. That's your top 5. Appreciate Pat sending that over to us. Get that on the air. That will be on our d3hoops.com here shortly. There's a little bit of a process to it, but it'll be up here momentarily for all to see. Want to thank our guests that coming on today's show, including Rhodes women's basketball coach Rodney Rogan. Seriously, we've got to work on something there. The Rhodes women's basketball coach is named Rodney Rogan, and he drives a Rogue. Seriously, there's something there. Hanover men's basketball coach John Miller, Lehman's men's basketball coach Stephen Shulman, Maine Maritime's women's basketball coach Craig Dagan. I want to thank their sports information directors as well. Some of them helping us out kind of at the last minute as well, as we had to book some last minute. Appreciate their help. I want to thank all those sports information directors helping with this upcoming Thursday show as well. That's going to do it for us. We got to get going because we got a basketball games to get to ourselves. And all kinds of other craziness. Again, stay tuned with us on social media and elsewhere for the marathon show. We'll start putting together teases and who's going to be on the show starting tomorrow. The list it's going to be a little bit different In the past, I've tried to hit every single region, have at least one guest, if not two, from every region, plus some other things. There's just too much going on, especially with 10 regions. So we'll stick to the 5 technically that we will cover normally. Again, regions 3, 5, 7, and then 9, 10 combined. We're also going to have guests from other areas. We're going to have a little bit laid back to some degree. We're going to talk to some student athletes about their accomplishments. We'll have some of our friends on to talk about Division III basketball at some point as well. Later in the program, it's going to be a relaxed show. No stress revolved in it. Maybe 2 guests an hour versus 3, something along those lines. So that's our plan. Again, about 12 o'clock Eastern time on Thursday. Really, the idea is to showcase Division III as we head into the final month of the season. We mentioned at the beginning of the show that we believe regional rankings will be released next Tuesday. That's a week from where we are now. That will be the first week's rankings. The women's handbook apparently says Wednesday. For everything I've been told, that's incorrect, including just talking to Craig Dagan there. He's given me they met today to do mock rankings. The regional committees usually meet on Tuesdays if the rankings are coming out on Wednesday. So I believe the rankings will all come out on Tuesday. But we'll confirm that because one of our guests on Thursday for sure will be both committee chairs. We'll talk to both Mike Schauer from Wheaton and on the men's committee and Megan Wilson from Luther on the women's committee. We'll also talk officiating. We're going to talk to some great student athletes as well. We're even going to get an update on things in Division III as Louisa McCleary, who is still interim vice president for Division III, has agreed to come on the show. So we'll talk to her as well. That's going to do it, everybody. Want to really appreciate you tuning in today to the show. Again, we'll be up on the air Thursday, 1 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock on Thursday. Then next Monday, we'll be back on at 1 o'clock too. And by that point, we'll have more idea on what we're going to do for that February 10th show. You've been listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com. If you want to talk Division III basketball, you've got to listen to Hoopsville. From the NABC studios, thanks to our partners at the Women's Basketball Coaches Association and Blue Frame Technology as well. We'll be back on the air with the Marathon Show coming up on Thursday. We look forward to having you there with us. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Enjoy the week of basketball, enjoy the new top 25s, and enjoy the last month of the regular season.